Good evening, everyone. How are you all? Good, good. मैं ठीक हूँ, thank you. Yeah. So we're here for PT365. So how many of you are here exclusively for PT365? A few are there. Okay, good. So for those of you who don't know about me, let me give a brief introduction. My name is Rajesh Govindraj, the faculty of Geography, Environment and Disaster Management here at Vision IS. Okay, so I also take optional geography here. So my primary area where I have a natural interest as well as a passion for the subject is both geography as well as environment. and this is 11th year of PT365, successfully conducting one of the earliest in the industry to bring this so current affairs classes, and one of the most successful, most trusted program we can say. And this has been referred by so toppers and the aspirants so every year to give a broad coverage of the entire year's current affairs for so prelims, and so we have got a feedback of that it has reduced the burden of the students to a very great extent. Okay, so we're thankful, and so we're hopeful that even in the coming days that we are going to increase the expectation and increase the match the expectation, increase the expectation in the field, and let's try to so work together to make things so much more easier for you, right? So I wish you all the best for that. How many of you are going to give this year? Raise your hands. Okay, good, good, good. So PT365 as a program, if at all you have seen, so I'm sure a few of you would have gone through the earlier material. Any of you have given prelims earlier? Okay, so you must have gone through the PT365 material. Okay, so it's like the entire year's summary of events which have happened, which is relevant from the context of the prelims current affairs, right? So here we have the various different subject divisions as such, but even though in UPSC there's much of overlapping happening between the different subjects, we try to broadly classify them into different categories, and in that I'll be handling the environment, which includes geography also. Okay, so geography, some part of geography related topics will also be there here, as well as disaster management. Okay. And in this, the first stretch of 5 sessions which we are going to have including today, so we are going to cover the months from April 2025 to November 2025. Fine. This is the first booklet. I hope you have got this booklet. Okay, so PDF you have got it, right? Okay. So we will be having another set of updated class covering from so December till April. Okay, so May is your exam. Okay, so till then we will have like mostly 1 or 2 booklets will come which have the entire updated current affairs up till April. Okay, so that again we will conduct again. Okay, so at least 2 classes are going to be there, if required a little bit more also. So now the idea and approach for this subject, for this current affairs, let me give you a brief understanding of this. So the subject, a general overview and analysis, and then I'll come to this PT365 part. We'll have a brief discussion over how to study this in specific, and how our classes are going to go, and how I would want you guys to so study along with these classes. What exactly is my expectation? Okay, so before that, let me just give you a brief analysis of the subject. Okay, so for those who are facing any issue with respect to the PDF or any other technical issues, please so contact our technical team. They would definitely help you out. Okay, so let's start with the subject of environment. So in prelims, the subject of environment is just given as one liner in the syllabus, and it's just given as general issues on environmental ecology, biodiversity, and climate change. Okay, so this is the topic as it is mentioned in the syllabus. So that is from the notification. This is from paper 1 of your preliminary. Okay, so where 3 topics are directly mentioned. One is environmental ecology, second one is biodiversity, third one is climate change. Okay, so 3 topics are directly mentioned. Doesn't mean that we are going to cover only these based on the PYQ analysis, based on the main syllabus. Okay, so we are going to have a broader coverage of all the different topics together. Okay, so yes, this is what is given in the syllabus. But beyond that, there's one more important line that do not require subject specialization. Okay, so what is the meaning of this? So this is the only subject where this line has been added. If you see any other subject, this line is not there. Only in the topic of environment, only in the subject of environment, UPSC is expecting that you study in such a manner that you don't study in too technical manner. You don't need a subject specialization here. Okay, so in fact, if you go ideally, you don't have to read environment as such. Okay, so because we all live in an environment, we all are surrounded by environment, natural environment, we are all impacted by this surrounding environment. We all should be aware of what is happening. Okay, so as because let's say if we're talking about air pollution, Delhi's air pollution, all of you are impacted by it. You should know what is air pollution, why is it so. As a common man, even if you think from a common man's perspective, also you should be aware of what is happening, right? If you talk about the climate change is impacting everyone on the earth. Is that right? You should know what is climate change, what is global warming. So in that sense, it is being discussed. Okay, so none of these environmental related topics, none of these environmental related subjects require a subject specialization. Okay, so in other subjects you may need it. In polity, you need to go in little bit detail regarding the provisions of the Indian Constitution, which may not be known by a common man. Okay, so in economics, you may have to read about certain basic terms, which goes in a little bit more detail, which may not be aware, even though he is impacted by it, he may not be aware of it. Is that right? But in environment, nothing is too specific, nothing is too technical. It is most of it is a little bit more general in the sense. Okay, so and we have to worry in the common practical aspect. We have to study in this common practical aspect only. You don't have to go in too detailed manner. That is the idea, that is why it is specifically mentioned here. Okay, so keep this in mind. Now, based on the PYQ analysis and based on the syllabus of prelims as well as mains, because so in prelim syllabus there are certain hints, in main syllabus there are certain hints. Combining together, we can say there are a total of 6 divisions inside this environment. Right? This is the traditional divisions. First one is ecology. Ecology talks about ecosystem, food chain, food web, ecological pyramid, different types of interactions, right? Biogeochemical cycles, right? Different types of ecosystems, biomes, and adaptations required, wetlands, peatlands, all of these basic understanding is covered here. Okay, so second is biodiversity. What is biodiversity? What is biodiversity? What is biological diversity? Bio is life, diversity is variability. The variety of life which is present on the earth is called as the diversity of life. Okay, so earth is the only known planet to host life, and the life on the earth is huge in terms of variety. It's not just one species. There's all different types of species are present. Okay, so and their interaction and their variety and the issues associated about them. Okay, so whether it is their conservation, different methods of conservation. Okay, so or what are the threats faced by them, how to deal with that. All that study is basically biodiversity. And this is where the questions comes on the wildlife. You must have heard about the questions on wildlife species. Yes or no? Okay, so in elephant they follow matriarchy. Okay, so and so leopards mark their territory with the help of scent marking. Okay, yes or no? All of these questions are from here. Very interesting. It will be difficult also. Okay, so that is the area of biodiversity. Then comes environmental degradation. Environmental degradation is basically about all the different types of issues which we are facing. Different types of pollution. Okay, so air pollution, water pollution, soil pollution, land degradation, deforestation, climate change, global warming, ozone depletion. Okay, so all of these issues, particularly most importantly here in the prelims point of view, the causes of them. Every year you will find few questions which are related to the sources of different types of pollutants. Whether this is a source of plastic, whether this is a source of air pollution or not. Okay, so in that, from which area, which are the industries, what are the following are the important sources of, let's say, oxides of nitrogen or not. Definitely one or two questions are going to be there about this. Very, very important for prelims. Conservation, again, major initiatives which we are taking to protect our environment. Okay, so different types of conventions, different protocols. Okay, so agreements, international organizations, domestically, so domestically environmental laws. There are a total of 10 environmental laws, if you know. Okay, so can somebody tell me what are the environmental laws? Wildlife Protection Act, Biodiversity Act, Forest Rights Act. Okay. Is it 10? Air Act, Water Act, good. National Green Tribunal Act. Okay, let me give you a chronology. Okay, so first one, Indian Forest Act 1927, Wildlife Protection Act 1972. Okay, so Air Act 1974, Forest Conservation Act 1980. Okay, so sorry, Water Act 1974, Forest Conservation Act 1980, Air Act 1981. Okay, so 5 ho gaya. Environment Protection Act 1986, Biodiversity Act 2002, Forest Rights Act 2006. Okay, so National Green Tribunal Act 2010, and then CAMPA Act 2016. Total of 10 environmental laws. You have to study this in very, very detailed manner. We can expect a direct question out of this. 10 environmental laws, you have to be totally thorough about this. In that, 3 laws have been recently amended. You need to go through this amended provisions in a little bit more detailed manner. Wildlife Protection Act, Biodiversity Act, and Forest Conservation Act. Fine. So you have to be completely thorough. All of this about the conservation. Okay, so acts, policies, plans, rules. There are many rules. Plastic waste management rules, e-waste management rules, hazardous waste management rules. Okay, so all different variety of rules should be studied in detail here. Okay, so and also important schemes and programs. Okay, so all of it, either you can club it together and read it. Let's say you're talking about air pollution. After covering all the aspects of air pollution, also cover the initiatives for air pollution, internationally as well as nationally. You're talking about climate change. Along with climate change, all the important initiatives for so reducing the impacts of climate change, like this, either parallel or separately, up to you. Sustainable development is another completely big area. Okay, so particularly when we talk about sustainable development in terms of energy, clean energy initiatives, sustainable agriculture initiatives, most of them are from current affairs only. Fine. Okay, that is sustainable development. And EIA and environmental ethics is a very brief idea, so you don't need it for specifically for prelims. EIA is required for prelims also. Okay, so rules for EIA, right? So we can say this is the broader division of this topics under environment. I want you to be clear with this so that our further discussions, whenever we pick up a particular topic, you should be able to relate. Okay, so this is related to this particular section. Because unlike geography, you don't have a very clearly demarcated areas in environment. Like if you take any random book in the market, you'll find divisions in a different manner. Okay, so this is also nothing fixed. This is how I teach in the class. So that is how I'm going to cover the current affairs topics also. Right? In this, ecology, EIA and environmental ethics are completely static in nature. There will be few questions. There will be few questions we can link it with the ecology concept, but they're less in number. Most of them you can thoroughly cover it through your class notes, classroom material. This entire topic will be covered completely because the EIA rules are very simple and direct rules. You have to be thorough with that. Otherwise, there's not much of current related aspects. I'll show a few examples also. You will understand this. Otherwise, biodiversity, there is enough static part as well as current related, particularly the species in use. Because important species in news, important measures to protect the biodiversity of India. So anything unique, anything which is special in the news in the recent times, all of this comes here. Environmental degradation, all the important pollutants, pollution related issues in the current context has to be covered thoroughly. Okay, so it has to be very detailed. And conservation is completely current affairs. Okay, so except the conventions and protocols and the laws, which you have to study thoroughly, have a broad idea, broad framework, most of them are current related only. Okay, so and sustainable development, as I told you, so energy related initiatives, agriculture initiatives, all of them again current affairs. Okay, so in these 4 units, if at all I have to demarcate, okay, so more than 50% is current affairs. Okay, so more than 50% of the topics and the questions are related to current affairs only. Unlike geography, where most of it is static, in environment is like more than 50% is current affairs, right? Talking about the overall weightage of environment section, this is the average weightage of the number of questions which have been asked in the last 10, 11 years. You can see. So on an average, we have around 18 questions. Okay, so if you take the average, you get around 18 questions out of 100, exclusively from environment. Exclusively from environment. Okay, so I'm telling you the weightage because people usually so consider this to be a minor section. Okay, so environment to geography के साथ में हो जाएगा. You know, so people used to think like that. Now they have started to realize this. It's a major section. This 18 doesn't include any question from geography. In the last 3-4 years, if I consider the weightage of geography has increased, there again we're expecting around 17 to 18 questions from geography also, exclusively geography. Together, geography and environment, including the mapping aspect, will cover 35 out of 100. 35 questions out of 100. You cover these sections thoroughly, completely, you will be very, very confident of clearing prelims. Okay, so that when you go to exam hall, you can confidently say, मेरे पास है environment and geography, right? Minimum 35. Last year, if you count mapping related, थोड़ा बहुत include कर दिया, है ना, हमारा ही बोल के include कर ही सकते हैं, यार related mapping है ना, तो आ जाएगा 40 तक आ जाएगा. ठीक है? So please don't ignore this section. In that environment, half of the environment related questions are from current affairs. That is why मैंने यहाँ पर add किया PT2026. You need to be completely thorough with this current affairs, then only you can say confidently. Fine. So talking about the weightage of different sections in prelims area. So I told you, so ecology is a very low in terms of weightage. However, it is consistent. Whatever the question comes in ecology, you can easily answer, and whatever you have studied through your class or class notes, that would be sufficient. When you come to biodiversity, degradation, and environmental conservation, these 3 become a major part of this entire prelims. Okay, so particularly the conservation aspect, if you see all the different initiatives, okay, so laws, rules, okay, so conventions, protocols, organizations, everything become a major part of this, covering nearly 35% of 100 questions, 100 marks. Okay, so sorry, 35 of 100% if we say, so let's say entire environment is 100% in that. Okay, so biodiversity, degradation, environmental conservation, and sustainable development, that is the major topic. In that, 50% are going to be from current affairs only. Okay, so there's not a single question which has come in the last few years on EIA, but we can expect EIA rules. उसके ऊपर तो question आ सकते हैं, so in prelims also. Okay, so the nature of questions, you can observe 3 types of questions in the prelims. One is static, another is completely current affairs. Third one is a mix of static and current affairs. Okay, so of course you can put it either in static or current affairs also. Okay, so what is a static question? What is a static question when I say? So what you have studied from the class and class notes, what has remained the same in the last 5-10 years, that is what is static. Okay, so let's say we talk about the different types of biomes: desert biome, tundra biome, rainforest biome. What are the characteristics? What are the adaptations required? What is the nature of the wildlife present over there? It's all part of static. It doesn't change every year. This you can thoroughly cover based on the last 10 years of analysis. Okay, so if you go through the thorough material or you attend any good class, you will be able to cover this thoroughly. That is what I'm saying, static. In every subject, there is some static part. Let's say we talk about climate change. Okay, so you need to understand the mechanism of climate change. What are the climate pollutants? What are the nature of them? What are the important sources of them? It's not like every year it changes, right? Every year changes. What changes? The initiatives taken, new initiatives comes. Okay, so new decisions taken, that changes. But the idea of climate change remains the same. Until now, whatever the major initiatives which have been taken, establishment of IPCC to UNFCCC, Kyoto Protocol to Paris Agreement, that remains the same. You have to thoroughly cover them. That is your static. When I say current affairs, in the last COP, what are the major decisions taken? Okay, so but without understanding this, you cannot understand that. Both are very much linked. That is why maximum number of questions come here. Both are very closely linked. Okay, so please ensure that your static part is also clear. Okay, so it's nothing like you will study only static part or you will study only current affairs part. Both should be integrated. I'll try to cover as much as possible whenever we take up a topic here. I'll try to bring the background and cover the static in brief. Okay, so then also cover the current affairs. Fine. So let me give you a few examples. Okay, so for example, in ecology, so this is a traditional static question we can say, and this is slightly related to current affairs. Very few questions are there, but one of them you can find them. Okay, so for example, agriculture soil release nitrogen oxides into the environment, cattle release ammonia into the environment, poultry industry releases reactive nitrogen compounds into the environment. Okay, so what is the answer here? All 3. Okay, so all 3. Traditionally, when you study about the nitrogen cycle, nitrogen biogeochemical cycle, you would have studied about agriculture, soil as well as cattle. From current affairs, they have picked up poultry industry also. Poultry industry are recently in news because of its high pollution and various environmental norms, violation of various environmental norms. In that context, has been picked up and it has been put. Is that clear? This is a traditional static question about the rainforest and their nature. Okay, so about their overall production. Biodiversity. Okay, this is traditionally so about. Okay, so let's say the behavior of different animals. Okay, so let's try to answer this. What is the answer for this? See, why am I saying this? Okay, so this appears to be very peculiar and very detailed question. I'm saying you can study this as part of your static. Is it possible? Yes, it is possible. You don't have to cover all the wildlife which is present in the world. There are certain important animals which are present in India that you have to cover in detail. Lion is obviously one among them. Okay, so how to identify them? I'll tell you. Okay, so biodiversity when we start, I'll tell you. Important ones are there. We can very easily identify them. In that, you have to go into the behavioral aspect. Behavioral aspect is the most important. Most of the questions in the recent times they're talking about the behavioral aspects only. Okay, so what are the special characteristics? What are the breeding periods? And then what is the way they hunt and what is the way so they migrate from one part to another. Behavioral is very very important. Okay, so this is from current affairs. Same biodiversity topic from current affairs. Invasive species specialist group belongs to which of the following organization? It's a report. It belongs to IUC. Okay, so that year it was in news. Therefore the question came. So now how to deal with this? Both static as well as current affairs. In current affairs, if there's anything related to news related to, let's say, lion, okay, so or tiger, which is, obviously it is going to be there. So there we have to pick up the hint and try to cover it in a little bit more detail. There are very less known wildlife. Okay, so you are not at all heard. There you don't have to go in detail. There the question was never in detail. Okay, so if it is a less known wildlife, less known species, you just have to know what exactly is this, where do you find them. More prominent one, you have to go in a little bit more detail. How to identify this prominent one? Let me tell you. There is a program, centrally sponsored program, integrated wildlife development, integrated habitat, wildlife development habitat program. Okay, so this is the program. In that, the third component of this is the species recovery program. In that, government itself has listed 22 species. Okay, so integrated development of wildlife habitat. In that, the species recovery program, the government is targeting 22 species. The government itself is targeting those 22 species. Obviously, that is important for India, important for biodiversity of India. So try to go in a little bit detail about them. Beyond that, there are certain other species where the government gives a special attention and special projects are there. For example, Project Tiger, Project Elephant. Okay, so project, let's say crocodile. They are not covered under these 22 species. That you can make a separate list and cover them. Approximately around 40 species will come in a little bit, so important, which you have to cover in a little bit detail manner. Okay, so make a list of them. Okay, so go through their special behavior, their broad range, where is it available, what is their IUCN status. Okay, so make a simple list of them, so that would be sufficient. That will cover most of it. Is that clear? Other than this, any other species you have to read from the current affairs. We'll cover it from current affairs also. Environmental degradation, again, I told you very common way of asking this is about the source of a pollutant. Okay, so for example, here how many of them contain plastic pollution cups, so sources kya hai? Okay, whether it is cigarette butt or eyeglasses lenses or so car tires or no, all three have plastic. Okay. So this is related to a report about the water stress, water degradation. Okay, so in 2023 this report came, 2022 2023, based on that a direct question came. It's a direct question on current affairs. Conservation, most of them I told you are current related, but there are few aspects we can say about the static part. In India, Biodiversity Management Committee are key to rationalization of objectives of Nagoya Protocol. This is directly question from the Biodiversity Act 2002. Okay, directly from the legislation. Okay, so I told you already, legislations are very, very important. You have to cover them in detail. This is from the recent COP, which has happened, and their outcomes. COP, particularly UNFCCC COP, is most important. You have to cover them in detail. Okay, so sustainable development, again, you have certain aspects, we can say static part, certain aspects, more of them are current related. Whether it is energy, solar energy, wind energy, hydrogen, nuclear, any newer forms of energy, renewable source of energy, and non-conventional source of energy, you have to cover them in detail. Okay, so methods of agriculture also, agriculture methods, sustainable agriculture methods, organic farming methods, okay, natural farming, and few specific methods over there, you have to cover them in detail. Most of them are from current affairs. This is the broad overview on the type of questions that are being asked from environment. Is that clear? To cover the entire subject of environment, of course, I would expect you, so those who are appearing freshly for this year, as well as those who are already prepared, I would expect that you prepare to some extent the static part, either from your class or any other source, whatever you have. I want you to cover this. Okay, so and this is current affairs. Okay, so for static part, I would say, so the beginning is from NCERT. I put the number 0 because it's just a beginning, okay, just for reference. Okay, so there are two NCERTs, 12th standard, 11th standard, 12th standard biology, chapter number 11, 12, 13. Okay, 11th standard chemistry, chapter number 14, but from the earlier edition, not the newer edition. In newer edition, they have removed the chapter only. Okay, so the earlier edition, this environmental chemistry covers all the most important pollution aspects. Okay, so this is like a basic reference. Beyond that, I would want you to have a proper thorough class notes or reference material, any one source which covers all the static related aspects comprehensively. Okay, so one note should be there, either self note or class notes, which covers most of the static related aspects. And one reference material. Okay, so for example, visualized printed material or any other material which you have read in the market, whatever you find them. Because in environment, there's no a proper textbook in the entire market. There are many of them are there. Most of them are compilations of information. There's no proper the way we have, for example, in polity Lakshmikant is there. Or in history we have Bibindra. Geography, so let's say we have Majid Hussain, or let's say NCERT also. Okay, so few of them. In that we don't have any such kind of textbook here. Any of the material which you have found it to be useful for you, you can go with that. But this is just for reference. If you cover all of this, your environment's 50% is done. 50%. Rest 50% is current affairs. Traditionally, you should have gone through the newspaper throughout the year, covering all the environmental issues. And few of the magazines like Down to Earth, Ministry Reports, and other reports. And every month's current affairs covering the entire environment section thoroughly. So which usually doesn't happen with many of the students. Okay, so therefore we have PT2026 covering all of this. But still, I would not recommend you to skip the newspaper. Okay, so it's not like I would definitely not say skip the newspaper. PT2065 ho gaya to kafi hai. That is, you cannot expect something from me. Newspaper ke liye koi bhi alternative nahi hai. You have to read newspaper. Even when you're covering PT2065, even if you're covering monthly magazine, you have to read them. Okay, so this is a revision document. Okay, so any newspaper, whether it is Hindu or Indian Express, any of them, one of them, you have to cover it thoroughly. Okay. Why am I saying this? Because when you read newspaper on daily basis, it gives you a broad overview, broad idea of the topics which are happening, and you are regularly updating yourself with that. Okay, so you don't have to make a notes out of this if you are going through PT2065 thoroughly. Fine, if you don't have to make a note separately. So, but still, certain editorial articles which covers the idea of comprehensively broadly. Okay, so and certain issues which are happening on daily basis. All of these, there is no better alternative other than newspaper for this. Okay? So this is a broad approach one should follow according to me for the section of environment. keep your statics and basics strong. Okay, few of the students are asking, उनके लिए class में अभी तक हुआ नहीं है. Okay, so environment class अभी तक हुआ नहीं है उनके लिए क्या है. So I would say, so take environment as such, current affairs, when we talk about it, it's not something which is completely relying on the classroom material or classroom so notes or something. You can understand independently of that also. It's not completely out of the blue you will see something here. Okay, so definitely that connection may be missing. So you will get that once the classroom program covers that, your classes covers that. Okay, so that time anyway, so you'll be able to connect. Whether you cover the classes first, then cover the current affairs, or cover the current affairs, then cover the classes, doesn't matter. It's the same. But you should have some broader idea what are the topics are there, what is the nature of the question. That is why I gave this brief analysis. Okay, so along with the class, you can cover this. Along with the class, you can cover this. No issues with that. Anyway, the most important part here is the revision. What you're covering, what you're going to study in this PT365 class is mainly about what is the overall topic, what is the issue, what are the things which you have to remember for the exam. I'll make you understand. You make a note of this. You make it so brief summary, or you highlight in the material itself. Whatever the way you want to do it, you can do it. In the end of the day, you have to go back and revise. And once your static part is covered, you have to connect. Or if it is already covered, then connect, then revise immediately. Okay, so no issues. None of these topics are like out of the blue, so which requires a thorough understanding of the classes. ऐसे कुछ भी नहीं है. And as I've already promised, I'll bring the static part for every topic. Wherever it is required, I'll bring it back. Okay. And so obviously current affairs I've told you. And notes. So I told you particularly for the static part, try to make a simple, so notes of your own, either from the class or any of the other material also, whatever you have done, that would be sufficient. But that is a basic reference is very much required, where you can go back again and again. For current affairs, I would say, so keep this PT365 material as itself as your notes. Here there are two ways. Either you can make a summary of what you're studying in the class. Okay, but here you have to be very careful not to skip the important points. Okay, if you're sure of making the notes out of this PT365, please be careful that you don't skip any of the important points. Okay, so in that case, you can go with that. Or if you have that doubt, so I may skip the important parts, you can make a note of this in the classroom, PT365 material itself. In the material only you highlight, you add the extra points, so that when you give second and third reading, you may want to remember few other important points also, because when you read the first time, so it's so much of information. Particularly environment is filled with so much of information. You will not be able to remember everything of it. Trust me. When you give the first reading, your main idea is, okay, so what is the broad idea? So what is the broad point here? क्या कहना चाहते हैं? ठीक है? That is the first reading. On that you have to add. When you give a second reading and third reading, you will add more information. So my suggestion here is, please take a printout or please take a book of PT365 environment, and on that only you write. Okay, if you don't have it today, so bring it to the next class. On that only you write, on that only you highlight, underline. Okay, so add extra points. When you read that again, you should be able to, okay, so you should be able to recall, okay, class में इतना हुआ था, इसके ऊपर मुझे पढ़ना है. Okay, so again, I'm not going to cover line by line. That is not possible. We have around 120 pages to be covered. So in 5 classes, that is not possible. My idea is to cover the topic and tell you what is this. If there's any concept, explain that. If there's any linkage has to be done, that has to be there. And if there's any addition, I'll tell you that. Rest everything is there in the middle. You have to go through them. My idea is to make your reading of PT365 easier. Okay, so and if you ask me, do you need any other source other than this? Ideally, you would not. Okay, so you would not need if you go through it thoroughly. Okay, so but बहुत लोग हमेशा डाउट में ही रहता है, इसी की वजह से वो उनके लिए हेल्पफुल नहीं रहेगा. If you have a doubt on this or any other material for that matter, you will not read it properly. है ना? So आप thoroughly cover ही नहीं कर पाओगे. You will always go in search of better material. वो material और अच्छा है, उससे better और है, ऐसे ही करते रहोगे. Is that right? So rather than that, trust the source, trust the material, and give your 100% on this. You will get the maximum benefit. Is that right? अगर उसके ऊपर भरोसा लगा दे तो 100% लगाओ यार. लाइक आधा भरोसा क्यों करना है? उतर ही गया. आधा भरोसा करके क्या ही होगा? पूरा लगा दो, जो होगा देखी जाएगा. And trust me, if you do that, your returns are going to be higher. You will get a lot of information which you had otherwise wouldn't have noticed. Okay, so first reading, I told you in the class whatever we are going to cover will give you a broad idea. When you go back and revise, you will get some more addition. When you revise comprehensively for the second time, the entire environment section is done. After that, when you pick up and read it again, so you will get some more additions. On the third time revision, some more addition. Before exam, I would want you to read at least 4 times. 4 times, end to end, not just the highlighted. Highlighted part, so you will read before the exam or before the mock test. End to end, you have to cover it. Because the first time when you read, you may skip few of the things. या दिमाग से नहीं गया, पढ़ भी लिया, दिमाग के अंदर नहीं गया, ऐसे होता है ना? So that is why you have to read end to end, because many of the times जो peripheral area से ही क्वेश्चन ज़्यादा आ जाता है. ऐसे देख के लगता है कि इसे क्वेश्चन ही नहीं आएगा. Okay, so finally question वही आएगा. So therefore, not taking any risk, read at least 4 times from end to end before the exam. 1 in the class. Okay, so after completion of entire environment once more, and then last reading. For that, it will be good if you have a proper complete, so separate material itself. PT365. And approach I've already told you. You have to follow the practical approach as given by UPSC itself. Okay, so try to stick to the practical, nothing theoretical, nothing too detailed, and try to show little curiosity. That is very, very important. Because many of the questions related to environment can be solved as it is in a general sense. अगर थोड़ा बहुत दिमाग लगाया था, थोड़ा बहुत common sense लगाया तो मिल जाता. Let me show a few questions. also see this. According to UN World Development Report 2022, India extracts more than a quarter of world's groundwater withdrawal each year. It appears like a very so strong fact which you don't know. If you don't know, you don't understand. थोड़ा सा आपको ग्राउंड वाटर एक्सट्रैक्शन के बारे में थोड़ा सा आइडिया है तो ये तो आपको पता ही है, इंडिया इज द लार्जेस्ट एक्सट्रैक्टर ऑफ ग्राउंड वाटर इन द वर्ल्ड. ठीक है. सेकंड एंड थर्ड प्लेस इज यूएसए एंड चाइना. इंडिया एक्सट्रैक्ट्स मोर ग्राउंड वाटर देन द कंबाइंड एक्सट्रैक्शन ऑफ यूएसए एंड चाइना. ठीक है. इतना हम क्यों एक्सट्रैक्ट करते हैं? मेनली फॉर एग्रीकल्चर. मोर देन 85% ऑफ द ग्राउंड वाटर एक्सट्रैक्शन गोज फॉर एग्रीकल्चर. ये थोड़ा सा ब्रॉड आइडिया यहाँ पर दिया है. इंडिया नीड्स टू एक्सट्रैक्ट मोर देन अ क्वार्टर ऑफ द वर्ल्ड्स ग्राउंड वाटर ईच ईयर टू सैटिस्फाई द ड्रिंकिंग वाटर एंड सैनिटेशन नीड्स ऑफ ऑलमोस्ट 18% ऑफ द वर्ल्ड्स पॉपुलेशन. पहली बात है कि जो फर्स्ट स्टेटमेंट का जो लिस्ट है वो सेकंड स्टेटमेंट के अंदर भी दे दिया. अगर फर्स्ट स्टेटमेंट गलत है तो सेकंड स्टेटमेंट भी गलत हो जाएगा. ऐसा नो. मोर देन 25% यहाँ पर भी बोल दिया, मोर देन 25% यहाँ पर भी बोल दिया, है ना. और सेकंड स्टेटमेंट के अंदर बोल रहा है कि ये सैनिटेशन एंड ड्रिंकिंग वाटर के लिए है. सैनिटेशन ड्रिंकिंग वाटर के लिए कितना लगता है? सो एग्रीकल्चर से ज्यादा लगता है क्या? एग्रीकल्चर इज द मोस्ट इंपॉर्टेंट कंज्यूमर. सबसे ज्यादा कंज्यूमर तो एग्रीकल्चर है, 85% से ज्यादा. मिल गया आंसर, है ना. सो यू नीड टू शो दैट सो सम क्यूरियोसिटी, सम कॉमन सेंस. ये सबसे इंपॉर्टेंट बायोडाइवर्सिटी वाला क्वेश्चन है ना, वो सबसे ज्यादा इंपॉर्टेंट, मतलब क्यूरियोसिटी के कंटेक्स्ट में. लायंस डू नॉट हैव अ पर्टिकुलर ब्रीडिंग सीजन. ये तो ऐसा इतना बायोलॉजी में कौन पढ़ना है? लाइक हाउ कैन समबडी रिमेंबर ब्रीडिंग सीजन ऑफ एवरी एनिमल? एक लॉजिक है. द ब्रीडिंग सीजन इज वेयर एनी एनिमल रिक्वायर्स मैक्सिमम नरिशमेंट, maximum food availability. Yes or no? So if there is not much of food availability, it is difficult to breed, difficult to nourish the offsprings. So there are two types of animals in this context: those which live in the area where the food is available throughout the year, those which live in an area where the food availability is seasonal. For example, cold area, polar area, mountainous area. I guess where there is too much of seasonal variation. Lion कहाँ पर रहता है? Grasslands, tropical region. There is not too much of variation in terms of the food availability. Lion खाता क्या है? Meat. ये तो non-vegetarian है. Throughout the year available होगा ना. जो हर्बीवर्स होता है, जो प्लांट्स को खाता है, वो सीजन के ऊपर वेरी होगा. ड्राई सीजन में प्लांट्स नहीं होगा, तो उस टाइम में ब्रीडिंग नहीं कर सकते. सिंपल लॉजिक है. लायंस कैन ब्रीड थ्रू आउट द ईयर. यस. Unlike most of the big cats, cheetahs don't roar. It's a very interesting, out of, so all the big cats, two big cats do not roar. Cheetahs and snow leopards. They don't roar. They purr like a cat. Yes, it's a very interesting one. Unlike male lions, male leopards do not proclaim their territory. Even a dog proclaims their territory. All big cats proclaim territory. This is also evolutionary. ये भी evolutionary है. Most of the solitary top predators want to maintain its territory and want to avoid conflict with the other top predators. That is how they can survive. तभी तो survive कर पाएगा. ऐसा no? If there is always a conflict, there is a competition between them, both of them will not grow. They maintain a territory. All top predators maintain territory. And there are different ways of marking the territory. Through urine or scent marking, through scratching. You must have seen a tiger. Okay, so if at all through videos. Okay, so it continuously roams the territory and marks the territory. Scent marking is very, very important. There's a logic here. Try to show some interest here. Okay, so क्यों ऐसे होता है? क्यों ऐसे होना ही चाहिए? ऐसा क्यों नहीं होना चाहिए? I would recommend few so documentaries for you to watch. बहुत बढ़िया भी रहेगा, आपके लिए भी टाइम पास हो जाएगा, मार्क्स भी आ जाएगा. हमेशा हर साल रेकमेंड करता हूँ, हर साल इससे क्वेश्चन आते हैं. Any of the series narrated by David Attenborough. Planet Earth series, Our Planet series, Blue Planet, Frozen Planet, any of the Planet series which you find. बहुत ही बढ़िया है. YouTube में एक सीरीज है Our Planet series, Our Planet by Netflix, released in YouTube. वो तो बहुत बढ़िया, बहुत इंटरेस्टिंग, बहुत सुंदर से बनाए हैं एंड उससे बहुत क्वेश्चन भी आए हमारे एनवायरमेंट के लिए, पर्टिकुलरली बायोडाइवर्सिटी के लिए. ठीक है. So like this. Or if you want to follow any of the, so let's say news feeds or social media, okay, so reels हो गया, shorts हो गया, Twitter हो गया, तो करते हैं, फ्री टाइम में तो करते हैं ना. उसके टाइम में एक काम करो, so एक दो बार सर्च कर लो एनवायरमेंट रिलेटेड टॉपिक, थोड़ा सा बायोडाइवर्सिटी रिलेटेड टॉपिक, टाइगर रिलेटेड सर्च कर लो, लाइन रिलेटेड सर्च कर लो, क्लाइमेट चेंज रिलेटेड सर्च कर लो, 3-4 बार सर्च कर लो. वो उसका एल्गोरिथम ऐसा है कि वही दोबारा आता ही रहेगा. या मेनी सच चैनल्स, मेनी सच सो फीड्स. वो आपका टाइम पास भी हो जाएगा, यहाँ पर एनवायरमेंट भी ठीक से कवर हो जाएगा. ठीक है. बियॉन्ड दैट देयर इज वन मोर इंपॉर्टेंट थिंग. If there are 18 questions in environment, there will always be 2 to 3 questions nobody will be able to answer. And this 2 to 3 question is not something which is common for everyone. Okay, so if you don't know about 2 to 3 questions, the other person will have that kind of 2 to 3 questions, a different one. None of the candidates will be able to attend all 18 out of 18. If at all there are 18 questions, don't worry about that 2 to 3 questions. What you have to worry about that 15 questions. क्योंकि ये इतना डाइवर्स एरिया है, इतना मतलब बहुत ही पेरिफेरल एरिया से उठा के क्वेश्चन पूछ सकते हैं कि वो हमेशा कुछ ना कुछ रह ही जाता है. Okay, so there will always be something which you don't know about. Don't worry about this. Accept this. आपको 100% अटेंड नहीं करना है एनवायरमेंट में, आपको 100% अटेंड करना है ज्योग्राफी में, पॉलिटी में. वहाँ पर टारगेट करो, वो मेहनत भी काम आएगा. यहाँ पर मत मेहनत करो. Don't target 100%. There will always be fewer. Of course, you give your 100%. But when it comes to the examination, don't get stressed. है ना. So ये तो इतना मेहनत किया कि फिर भी तो 2-3 क्वेश्चन छूट गया, वो हमेशा छूट जाते हैं, मुझे भी छूट जाते हैं. You give it to me, so I'll also not be able to answer. हमेशा ऐसे रहता है. Even I'll have to think, sit and analyze, then I'll get the answer. Don't worry about that. In environment, accept that few questions are going to go. Your target is to cover the maximum. Is that clear? So let's start with the biodiversity aspect here. As I told you, ecology as a unit will not have too many current related aspects. Even if there's some, we will include that in the biodiversity only. Okay, the unit of biodiversity. In that, what are the topics? What are the topics? You need to understand what is biodiversity, What are the different forms of life on the earth? Okay, so and what are the levels of biodiversity, distribution of biodiversity on the earth? Okay, so loss of biodiversity and conservation of biodiversity. This is the overall unit of biodiversity. And those who have already covered, they know this. Those who are not yet covered, so you will know this. Okay, this is the topic of biodiversity. In that, current related aspect comes in the life on the earth, different forms of life. Okay, so what are the different variety and what are their behavior and all? Conservation. Okay, so distribution, conservation, and some aspects of loss, threatened species and all. Okay, so I want you to cover this aspect thoroughly, separately. Let's see the current affairs part. Okay, so we're starting with the unit of biodiversity. Earlier we used to start with climate change, but there's so many negative things with climate change, you know. So शुरू करना ही negative से क्यों? फिर हमने change कर biodiversity से करते हैं इस बार. Okay, so for today's class, you can make a note. Okay, so whatever I'm going to discuss, you can just briefly make a note of this. From tomorrow's class, preferably try to bring the material itself. On the material itself, it will be easier. Okay, so since you don't have the material, let me just display that. Okay, I'll display while reading. Okay, while explaining, so it'll be easy for you. Okay, so first topic is IUCN World Conservation Congress. First of all, tell me what is IUCN? International Union for Conservation of Nature. ठीक है, full form बता दिया. अभी बताइए what is IUCN? What is this? It's an intergovernmental body, international organization, or NGO. I give you three options: intergovernmental body, international organization, or NGO. International organization. What is the intergovernmental body? A body which is made up of different governments of the world. Only governments can be the member of them. For example, IPCC is an intergovernmental body. Only the members are only the governments, nobody else. An international organization is where anyone can join. Government, private, NGO, everyone can be a member of this. IUCN is an international organization where the membership goes up to 1,400 plus. Okay, so it is working in the context of conservation of nature, conservation of biodiversity, conservation of plant species, conservation of animal species, entire biodiversity on the earth. Okay. So IUCN as a body was established in 1948. It's an international body. Basically, international body में क्या होता है? Everyone can come and everyone can contribute towards the work which is happening. है ना? This is the world's largest environmental network where the governments, private bodies, NGOs, okay, so experts, research institutions, all of them have become part of it and they're working together. The most important, initiative of IUCN is the Red List. Have you heard of Red List? It's called as the IUCN Red List itself. Whatever the wild animals are there on the surface of Earth, the biodiversity is there on the surface of Earth, they are being threatened by the human activities. Their numbers are drastically declining. Okay, so this red list gives how much of threatened status is there. Some of them are extremely threatened, we call them as critically endangered. Some of them are less threatened, we call them as vulnerable or near threatened. Some of them are almost extinct in the wild, it's called as extinct in the wild. Like this, their proper scientific assessment is done. Every year, this updation is given. Every species has a particular status. This is called as the IUCN status that comes from the IUCN Red List. Okay? Of course, India is also a member of this. In that, its highest governing body is the IUCN World Conservation Congress. Once in 4 years, they meet, and that meeting is what is called as the World Conservation Congress, WCC. Fine. Now, the last such meeting was held in 2021, the previous one, and the latest one was held in 2025. The last one, in that meeting, what do? They sit and decide and discuss. Okay, so कौन क्या करने हैं, कैसे करने हैं, कहाँ पर ठीक से काम हो रहा है, नहीं हो रहा है. So they discuss the important measures to be taken in the context of wildlife conservation. They also suggest important policy decisions and observations which should be implemented by most of the countries. That is the idea of this Congress, IUCN World Conservation Congress. Okay, so I'm just giving you the gist. IUCN is the body, international organization. There are many members, and their meeting, which is held once in 4 years, is what is called as the World Conservation Congress. The 2021 World Conservation Congress was held in Marseille. Where is Marseille? France. The 2025 World Conservation Congress of IUCN was held in Dubai. Sorry, Abu Dhabi. Okay, so Abu Dhabi, UAE. Okay, so this is the conference where they basically set a broad agenda and policies to implement to influence the countries, and none of them are legally binding. क्वेश्चन यहीं पे होगा. The decisions taken by the World Conservation Congress is legally binding on its members. Yes or no? ये possible ही नहीं है. There are 1400 members are there working in different areas. You cannot ask them and follow them to implement this. This is not legally binding. Whereas if it is something related to an international intergovernmental organization, okay, so where the members are the sovereign state and they are committing, then only it becomes legally binding. None of them are actually legally binding. So what are the major decisions taken here? Okay, so one of them is adoption of Unite for Nature on the path to 2045. 2025 में हुआ था. It's like a 20 years strategic vision has been agreed. Okay, so next 20 years में wildlife conservation के context में हमें क्या करना है, ऐसे लेके एक broad idea adopt किया है. Okay, so question यहाँ पर आता है, Unite for Nature on the path to 2025 was adopted at or was adopted on behalf of which organization? तीन चार organization दे दिया, उसमें आंसर है IUCN. Okay, so Unite for Nature on the path to 2045 was the major one. In addition to this, one more important aspect was discussed here. Just phase out of fossil fuel. Okay, so this is something which is slightly technical. I'll tell you why. Phase out of fossil fuel. Why do we have to phase out the fossil fuels? Many things are there. One is air pollution. Fossil fuels cause air pollution. Fossil fuel release huge amount of carbon dioxide. Okay, fossil fuel causes climate change and global warming. Yes or no? Other than that, fossil fuel dependency is also not sustainable for the future energy. There's a limited fossil fuel. You continuously burn it, it will get exhausted. Energy security will get impacted. Therefore, we have to transition towards the better sources. That is called as transition. But that transition has to be just a transition. What do you mean by just a transition? That transition should not impact anyone negatively. There are so many dependent communities, mining communities, people who are involved in thermal power plants, their employment get impacted, people who are specially skilled to work in these areas of fossil fuels only. If you suddenly change them, their entire livelihood gets impacted. The transition has to be just, if you're transiting away from this, provide an alternative source for them, develop a different source of income, different skill set. That impact should not be negative. This is also there between the developed and developing countries. The developed countries are forcing the developing countries to phase out all coal. But we don't have much of alternative. 45% of India's energy comes from coal. You provide me alternative, you provide me better technology, we will transit. That is called as just transition. Okay, so this is also discussed in UNFCCC, and here also it is advocating a just phase out of fossil fuels adopted. मतलब इस context में बात हुआ है. One more important interesting thing which they agreed were wild animals are recognized as climate allies. Okay, so acknowledging as the agents of nature-based solutions for the climate resilience. So what do you mean by wild animals are recognized as climate allies? Wherever there is a rich diversity of life, the forests are going to be richer, and that will hold a good amount of carbon in it, which helps in carbon sequestration, which will reduce the impact of climate change. The quality of forest. Also, the role of indigenous people is very, very important. That is also recognized under this conference. Indigenous people basically means the tribal community, the local community, and their contribution in the biodiversity conservation is huge. These are the four major highlights. Rest up. First, adoption of Unite for Nature on the path to 2045. Okay, so just phase out of fossil fuels. Wild animals recognized as climate allies, and then the role of indigenous people and nature recognizing their role in the biodiversity conservation. ये सारा डिसीजन यहाँ पर हुआ था. इसके साथ में कुछ और डिसीजन भी हुआ था. So one of them I'll tell you that is also important. Okay, so other than that I'll come to that. So few other news related to IUCN is there. In the context of IUCN, what you have heard is the red list. Okay, so what is IUCN red list? The list of animals which are categorized according to their threat status. Okay, so I also have a यहाँ पर. Okay, so this is what is IUCN red list. ठीक है? All the animals are given this status based on their overall yearly assessment, from not evaluated to data deficient to least concern, going up to extinct. Okay, so in this the most important ones are vulnerable, endangered, and critically endangered. You have to remember these three important ones in that. Vulnerable कौन कौन सा है, endangered कौन सा है, critically endangered कौन कौन सा है. You have to remember them. So this is based on the yearly assessment, based on their numbers, how they are decreasing at the global level. Whatever the IUCN status we declare, let's say tiger is declared as an endangered species as per IUCN, that is at the global level. Of course, this is a very important one. World level में so एक idea मिल जाएगा कैसे है. The issue is in every country the status may be different. Yes or no? A tiger may be at the global level may be endangered, but in India it may be critically endangered. Yes or no? And whatever is the status given by the IUCN at the global level may not be applicable in India at the local level, because in India whatever the law is there, whatever the rules are there, that should be domestically made. So it is very much necessary that at the national level we should have such kind of database. Finally, India has announced that we will be doing that database with the help of IUCN only. वो है news. India's National Red List Roadmap and Vision 2025-2030. इसके अंदर सब टॉपिक जैसे लिखना. India's National Red List Roadmap and Vision 2025-2030. It's a 5-year initiative where the Indian government is going to work with IUCN, both of them. Okay, so that is Indian Forest Department plus IUCN. Okay, so along with this we have the Zoological Survey of India and Botanical Survey of India. These are the major agencies: the Ministry, IUCN, ZSI, and BSI. Zoological Survey of India and Botanical Survey of India. All these agencies are going to work together, and they are going to assess the exact status of nearly 11,000 species which are present in India. and we are going to make a list which is specific to India by 2030. This is going to be India's own version of IUCN rate list. Of course, the global version is going to be there. This version is going to be better useful for us. We will understand the local status. I told you the global species may be having a different status here. We'll understand that how much of threat is there. We can devise policies accordingly. Second, this data is going to be more useful for us. And so to help this local laws, it will be taken as an input for India's laws and policies. And moreover, IUCN will not cover these many number of species. At the global level, it will not be able to cover so many species, right? So there are so many species which are in India which are very, very important, which are endangered, which are not even covered by IUCN. We will cover them also. So with all of this advantage, we have started this recently. It has been announced. This is going to be a very good initiative. Okay, so we are hopeful that this will be covered. This will be done by 2030. The important thing which you have to remember is what are the agencies involved. Obviously, IUCN is also going to be involved. Along with that, the Zoological Survey of India and Botanical Survey of India. क्वेश्चन यहाँ पर आ सकते हैं, IUCN का रेट लिस्ट ऑलरेडी है, ये दूसरा क्यों चाहिए? वो भी मैंने बताया क्या क्या है वहाँ पर. More coverage, local status, input for domestic laws and rules. And whatever the wildlife which is there in India or at the world level, IUCN rate list, IUCN updates them every year. Okay, so twice a year updated, at least twice a year it happens. And you have to go through their recent status. Okay, so any species, because in the internet as well as in the market, there's so many material available, all of these species status are updated during the time of that material making. Over a period of time, it changes. Okay, so whenever you read about the species under IUCN status, please search them in the internet. Particularly Google में मत search करना, जाके IUCN website में search करना. ठीक है, so ChatGPT के अंदर भी search मत करना. वो भी वही डेटा उठाते हैं. सर्च इन द वेबसाइट ऑफ IUCN. लेटेस्ट स्टेटस मिलता है, वो आपको याद रखना है. रिसेंटली चेंज किसका हुआ है वो यहाँ पर कुछ है. ओके, सो लेट्स ट्राई टू कवर देम. इंडियन कोर्जर, इंडियन रोलर, रूफस टेल्ड लार्क. Okay, so earlier they were not threatened, now they are coming near to the threatened. मतलब near threatened, earlier they were least concerned, now they are in the near threatened. They are upgraded. In the threatened list they are upgraded. मतलब ये negative है. Earlier they were somewhere here, तो अभी आ गया near threatened के पास में. Okay, so 3 कौन कौन सा? Okay, so दिखा देता हूँ तभी याद रहेगा, नहीं तो याद नहीं रहेगा. This is Indian courser, dry grassland में मिलता है. ये छोटा सा बर्ड है. इंडियन रोलर इज अ वेरी ब्यूटीफुल बर्ड. इसका पिक्चर मैंने भी खींचा हूँ, दिखाता हूँ. ठीक है, बहुत ही सुंदर सा है. रूरल एरियाज में मिलता है, आजकल तो बहुत रेयर हो रहा है. That is why the status has been upgraded as near threatened. Indian roller. बाकी ये तो मुझे भी नहीं मिला है. Rufous tailed lark. Okay, let's see how it is. This is rufous tailed lark. Lark species ये सारा ground birds है, ground के पास में रहते हैं. Okay, so difficult to identify. घास के ऊपर बैठ गया तो भी नहीं दिखता है ऐसे. Rufous tailed lark. Okay, so they are uplisted to near threatened. Long-billed grasshopper warbler. ये और uplist हो गया. जो recently uplist हुआ है, recently changes हुआ है, obviously it is important. Just showing the picture so that at least you can remember their name. Warbler. हमारा स्पैरो जैसे लिख रहा है. Warbler bird. ठीक है. Other than this, at the global level, the important one जो है green sea turtle. How many turtle species are there in the world? जो marine turtles है. 7. Okay, so 7 turtle species, marine turtle species are there. In that, जो इंडिया में जो सबसे कॉमनली मिलता है, मतलब along the coast of Odisha, वो है olive ridley turtles. Okay, olive ridley turtles. ये जो न्यूज़ में है वो है green turtle. They're all sea turtles only. Green sea turtle. Same. Sea turtle, marine turtle same. Which is the largest sea turtle? वो लैंड बेस्ड है. लेदरबैक टर्टल. जो इंडिया में कहाँ पर आता है? गलातिया बे, where we have the project being implemented, है ना? Great Nicobar Island. This is the largest sea turtle in the world. ठीक है. Fine. यहाँ पर एक और लाइन भी दिया है, लगता है इंपॉर्टेंट है बट उतना इंपॉर्टेंट नहीं है, क्लैरिफाई कर देता हूँ. फर्स्ट एवर पॉलिसी ऑन सिंथेटिक बायोलॉजी एंड नेचर कंजर्वेशन recognizes ecocide as international crime under ICC. Okay, so first of all, we all know about ICC. ICC tries individuals who have committed crimes, and there are only 4 crimes under ICC. So ICC का जो categories है, there are only 4 categories. Number 1, genocide. Number 2, crime against humanity. Okay, so number 3, war crime. Number 2, crime of aggression. ये 4 crime है. इसके साथ में एक और crime add करना है, ऐसे proposal. There is a proposal to add the 5th crime, that is ecocide. Ecocide is basically a great ecological damage let's say a large scale oil spill, the way it happened in 2010 in the Gulf of Mexico. It had a devastating effect on the entire ecology over there. You can call them as ecocide. ऐसे प्रपोजल है ecocide को भी फिफ्थ क्राइम बनाने के लिए, ये अभी भी एक्सेप्टेड नहीं है, बिकॉज आईसीसी के अंदर एक्सेप्ट करना तो बहुत ही मुश्किल वाला बात है. रोम स्टैट्यूट हैज टू बी चेंज्ड, है ना. इट इज नॉट एक्सेप्टेड येट, बट यहाँ पर जो जब कांग्रेस हुआ था, वर्ल्ड कंजर्वेशन कांग्रेस, वहां पर बोला है कि इसको कंसिडर करना है. इट इज नॉट वन ऑफ द क्राइम अंडर आईसीसी येट. इट हैज बीन recognized as one of the war crime by WCC. One of the crime. Yes, all of this come. Any kind of large scale event which is causing a large scale environmental damage. Accidentally also, if somebody is committing it, okay, if somebody is committing it intentionally, है ना, प्लीज बी क्लियर, ये आईसीसी के अंदर अभी आया नहीं है. ठीक है. So now the way we have red list, red status, in the same way there is also green status. IUCN green status, this is something of recent. Okay, so in IUCN green status there are two types of green status. One is the green status given to the protected areas. First of all, tell me what is a protected area. A protected area is where there is wildlife and the human interference is restricted. That is what is protected area. There are different types of protected area. For example, a national park, wildlife sanctuary, conservation reserve, community reserve, biosphere reserve. Okay, sorry, tiger reserve. They're all protected area where the human activities are restricted either through law or through rules or regulation. Something is there. Indian law के हिसाब से कौन-कौन से protected areas है? 4 protected areas. National park, wildlife sanctuary, conservation reserve, community reserve. They are defined under the Wildlife Protection Act only. Only 4 are defined under the Wildlife Protection Act. बाकी सारा तो there is no legal recognition. That is called as protected area. Now a protected area has to be maintained properly. There should be certain specific set of standards to be maintained. Rules and regulations should be maintained. जो अच्छे से maintained है उसके लिए internationally recognition मिलेगा IUCN green list of protected areas के through. The way red list is like a negative, green list is like positive. जो अच्छे से maintain किया है. The well maintained protected areas are given the status. In the same way, there is also green list of species also. What is a green list of species? A green list of species are those threatened, endangered species whose conservation status is becoming better. उनके ऊपर अच्छे से काम हो रहे हैं, उनका थोड़ा सा improve होते जा रहे हैं, है ना. So red list में क्या करते हैं? What do we do in red list? We try to assess कितना ये खराब होते जा रहे हैं. Green list में हम assess करेंगे कितना ये better होते जा रहे हैं. Okay, so that is the idea of green list and red list. A species may be already in a red list. That doesn't mean that it should not go into green list. दोनों हो सकता है. Already endangered species, critically endangered species, because of so conservation efforts or something, their status may be improving. We'll say, okay, so we'll recognize them in the green list. That is the basic idea of green list. The green list idea, red list idea is very, very old. Okay, so red list is started from 1964. Green list is very recent. Green list for species particularly. So that was proposed in 2012, but finally implemented in 2021. Okay, so 2021 में वो implement हुआ था. तब से वो green list of species ऐसे list करते जा रहे हैं. In India, whatever the wildlife which is present here, IUCN regularly updates this green list. Nearly 100, 120 species across the world it has identified and gives the status of green list. Out of this, 5 animals from India are being assessed, already being assessed. What are the 5 species from India which have a place in the green list of IUCN? Okay, so you can make a note. ये इसके अंदर नहीं है. Tiger, lion, snow leopard, elephant, that is Asiatic elephant, and one-horned rhino. One-horned rhino. The idea of green list is to identify the conservation status. Okay, so how much of conservation is being done here? How much of helpful, so upgradation is being happening here? The way there are red list status is there, in the same way green list status is also there. Red list status ends with the extinct in wild. Green list status begins with the extinct in wild. And every further status is like an improvement in the green list. Extinct in wild, critically depleted, largely depleted, moderately depleted, slightly depleted, fully recovered, non-depleted, and indeterminate. You don't have to remember them, at least you should be able to recognize them. Okay, so first try to recognize them. Okay, these are the status under the green list. Okay, so then further second, third revision, you'll be able to identify them. Okay, so more than 100 is there. In that, India has a total of 5 species which are part of this. Okay, given what are they? The recent one which has been made part of this green list is lion. The recent assessment on lion has been done. Okay, so come here. Okay, we'll cover lion, then we'll go back there. Because lion was recently assessed. Lion was given the green list status. According to the latest assessment, the Asiatic lion. What are the different types of lions in the world? Asiatic and African lion. The Asiatic lion has been recently made assessment, and that it was found that it is largely depleted. जितना status मैंने बताया था ना, in that it fits into the category of largely depleted. In the IUCN red list, what is its category? What is its status? Asiatic lion is vulnerable. Yes. In the same way, you will also have to remember in which list it is present here. Okay, so in the Wildlife Protection Act, there are 2 schedules, Schedule 1 and Schedule 2. Schedule 1 has a greater protection, Schedule 2 has a lesser protection. Okay, so obviously lion will come into Schedule 1. Now, there are 2 species of lion in the world. So related to the news, only this you need to remember this IUCN green list status. Accordingly, this is largely depleted. Okay, so in Asia, where is lion present? Only in South Asia, only in India, only in Gujarat. That is the only place in the entire world where you find Asiatic lion. No other country has Asiatic lions. Whatever left over, it is all African lion. Okay, बाकी सारा African lion. Till recently, till last year, it was present only in the Gir forest of Gujarat. This year, we have got one more addition to Gir inside Gujarat only. That is Barda, Barda, Barda Wildlife Sanctuary of Gujarat. Few of the lions have been translocated over there. The green list species which are present in India: tiger, lion, leopard, not leopards, no leopard. Tiger, lion, snow leopard, one horned rhino, and Asiatic elephant. So now, since lion is in news, okay, so let's go in slightly detail. Lion already covered last year, last to last year in UPSC, but you never know. What are the basic differences between Asiatic and African lion? I have a single picture where. Okay, so let me take this picture. This is Asiatic or African lion? Asiatic. Okay, basic difference. Asiatic lion has a mane which is smaller than African lion. What is mane? M-A-N-E, mane? The large sized hair, appears like a beard. So that is called as mane of a lion. The mane of a African lion is much bigger. It is so big that you cannot see its ears. Asiatic lion's ears are very clearly visible all the time. Okay, so you can see. Usually it is not visible. When you say African lion, you see, it has a bigger mane, right? And Asiatic lion is slightly smaller in size than the African lion, slightly smaller. Okay, हल्का सा. फिर भी वो lion तो lion ही है. Other than this, most characteristic identification is this fold of skin along its belly. I'm covering this little bit detail because it's in news. Okay, so the fold of skin along the belly is present only in case of Asiatic lion. It's not present in African lion. The skin fold, मतलब इसका जो थोड़ा सा tone निकला है ना, वो African lion में नहीं होता है. That fold of skin, that's not present in African lion. Okay, so otherwise, in both the cases, whether it is Asiatic lion or African lion, it is the female which takes care of the pride. The pride is the group of lion. Okay, so and it's the male can be chased away by another male. The pride remain the same. The pride is always managed by the females. The females within the pride remains within the pride. Any cubs who are born in the pride, once they become adult, the females continue to remain part of the pride. The males go out of the pride and find its own pride. Okay, so it is required to ensure genetic diversity. Okay, so, but it is always female. Even though so we call so lion is the most so powerful, more ferocious. Female, that is lioness, is much more ferocious than male. Normally, it is the lioness which goes for hunting, not the lion. Lion is very lazy. Yes, doesn't go for hunting because it's very clearly visible also. Okay, so it's natural. Okay, so a lioness has more so advantage. Doesn't have a mane, slightly smaller in size. It can easily hide. Okay, so and most of the big cats depend upon ambush, surprise. Okay, so only big cat which is not only ambush, it also capable of running fast is our cheetah. Okay, so but other so whether it is a tiger or lion, it depends upon the surprise. Okay, so visibility should be as low as possible. That is advantage of lioness. When lioness goes for hunting, the lions take care of cubs. Okay, so and usually a pride will have one or two lions, and the most dominant one is considered to be the so the leader of the pride. It's not a king of the pride. As such, we have heard this lion is the king of the forest. Lion is the king of grassland, not forest. Doesn't live inside the forest. It stays in grassland. It's a grassland species. Okay? And other than this, few other behavioral breeding already question has come throughout there. Simple logic, it applies to everyone. All carnivores usually they breed throughout there unless there is any environmental restrictions. Like let's say polar bear breeds only during the winter. Sorry, breeds only during the summer. Okay, so like that. The largest big cat species is tiger. Tiger is bigger than lion in size because tiger is more muscular than lion. Okay, so lion is slightly bony. The way lions demarcate its territory, of course, through scent marking, it is there. Scent marking is there, urine is there. One more special way compared to other big cat species is through its roar. Okay, so particularly the male lead lion through its roar demarcates its territory, and the roar can be heard up to 5 kilometers. Okay, so Lion King तो देखा ही आप लोगों ने, है ना? So through its roar it identifies its territory. If any other lion comes into its territory and roars, that means it's a challenge. Okay, so some of the basic behavioral traits. Let's continue. That is about the green list. So other than this, few more things in news. एक award recently news में है, तो ये बड़ा important है. It is Kenton R. Miller Award. Kenton R. Miller Award. Kenton R. Miller was a great conservationist biologist from America. Okay, so he has worked closely with IUCN and he is like a pioneer in developing the protected areas across the world, devising protected areas, how a protected area should be managed. Okay, so he is the person. On him, there is an award which was established by the World Commission on Protected Areas, WCPA. The World Commission on Protected Area has established an award in whose name? Kenton R. Miller. Kenton R. Miller was a great conservationist biologist. Okay, so and this World Commission on Protected Areas is part of IUCN itself. IUCN का ही part है. ठीक है? This year it is important because Kaziranga National Park's field director has become the first Indian to win this award. Because this award was also given in that World Conservation Congress which was held in Abu Dhabi. Okay? So that was Dr. Sonali Ghosh. Okay, so add this name. Dr. Sonali Ghosh, the field director of Kaziranga National Park, is the first Indian, not the first female, first Indian to win this Kenton R. Miller Award for her efforts to protect the Kaziranga National Park. अबू धाबी में ये अवार्ड दिया था. ठीक है, तो ये माइनर न्यूज़ है, ये देखना, ये इंपॉर्टेंट है. IUCN World Heritage Outlook. IUCN World Heritage Outlook. You must have heard about the World Heritage Sites. What are World Heritage Sites? The important sites across the world which are recognized by UNESCO. There are 3 types of World Heritage Sites: cultural, natural, mixed. Okay, so cultural, natural, and mixed. Any example for cultural sites in India? Qutub Minar, Hampi, very good. Okay, natural heritage sites. UNESCO natural heritage sites. Kanchenjunga. Kanchenjunga is mixed, I guess. Manas is natural. Western Ghats is natural. Sundarbans is natural. Okay, Kanchenjunga is mixed. We have 3 types of sites. IUCN every year assess this World Heritage Sites which are both natural as well as mixed. Cultural छोड़ दो, वहाँ पर IUCN का काम नहीं है. IUCN का काम कहाँ पर है? नेचर में. Whatever the natural and mixed heritage sites are there, every year it gives an assessment. How well they are maintaining, how well they are being protected. That assessment is called as the IUCN World Heritage Outlook. ठीक है? So what is IUCN World Heritage Outlook? It is the assessment of the conservation status of World Heritage Sites, covering both natural as well as mixed sites. In the recent assessment, which was released in the year 2025, the last assessment was released in the year 2020. 5 year once ये assessment होगा. Okay, so 2020 के बाद में 2025 में assessment हुआ है. In this recent assessment, it has declared few of the sites in India. One of them is Western Ghats, another is Manas, third one is Sundarbans. Earlier, these were categorized as so good with some concerns. So according to this IUCN World Heritage Outlook, there are 4 ways in which it will categorize any site. कोई भी site IUCN कोई heritage site ले लो, उसमें 4 category में categorize करता है. Number 1 is good site, number 2 is good with some concerns, number 3 significant concern, number 4 is critical. ठीक है, बताइए कौन कौन सा है? Good हो गया, good with some concern, significant concern, critical. 2020 का रिपोर्ट के हिसाब से वेस्टर्न घाट्स, मानस एंड सुंदरबंस वर गुड विद सम कंसर्न. नाउ इट हैज बिकम सिग्निफिकेंट कंसर्न. ये मतलब और खराब होते जा रहे है ना. सो देयरफॉर दिस 3 आर इंपॉर्टेंट. कौन कौन सा सिग्निफिकेंट कंसर्न हो गया? वेस्टर्न घाट्स ऑफ इंडिया, मानस नेशनल पार्क एंड सुंदरबन, दे आर ऑल वर्ल्ड हेरिटेज साइट्स. Okay, they're all natural heritage sites. Recently, it has been given the status of significant concern. Kanchenjunga National Park has remained in the good status only क्योंकि वहां पर कोई जाते नहीं है, बहुत दूर है. ठीक है. So this is based on the 2025 assessment. Western Ghats, entire Western Ghats have been declared as a natural heritage site. Okay, so and Kanchenjunga, where is Kanchenjunga? Sikkim and Nepal border. Okay, so there we have the Kanchenjunga. It is a mixed heritage site, both cultural as well as natural. Manas is a natural heritage site. It's a very beautiful, so national park as well as tiger reserve. And it's a biosphere reserve also. And we have the Sundarbans that is near to the delta. Okay, near to the delta. Sundarbans of West Bengal is a natural heritage site. Okay, so green status हो गया. So Barda Wildlife Sanctuary, please locate कहाँ पर है? So towards the western part you will find Barda Wildlife Sanctuary. जहाँ पर दोबारा reintroduce हुआ है. पहले था, अभी recently reintroduce हुआ है. It is the second home for Asiatic lions in India. It is the second home for cheetahs in India. Gandhi Sagar Wildlife Sanctuary. First is Kunapalpur, second already started, वहाँ पर introduce हो गया, that is Gandhi Sagar. We'll talk about that. Sita is also there. So next topic, UNESCO's World Network of Biosphere Reserve. First of all, tell me what is a biosphere reserve? Biosphere reserve क्या होता है? A biosphere reserve is a broader concept of protected area. I told you about protected area. An area where there is biodiversity which is protected from human activities is called as protected area. There are different types of protected area: national park, wildlife sanctuary, conservation reserve, community reserve, wetlands, bird sanctuary. Okay, so or even we can say tiger reserve and biosphere reserve. Biosphere reserve is one of the type of protected areas. When we compare with the other type of protected areas in other cases they are smaller and they are more controlled and regulated. Human activities are usually restricted over there. In case of biosphere reserve, they are much larger in size, and here the human activities are not restricted or regulated. Rather, we consider human beings to be part of the entire ecosystem. We try to bring an ecological balance between the already existing biodiversity and the human activities. Fine. This is the idea of biosphere reserve. Within a biosphere reserve is a very large area. For example, the entire Nilgiri is a biosphere reserve. Within a biosphere reserve, you may have multiple other protected areas like national parks, wildlife sanctuaries, or tiger reserve, or wetlands, or you may also have many villages. Okay, so towns, small towns. Okay, ऐसे बहुत सारे regions होते हैं उसके अंदर. Every country declares their own biosphere reserves. India has declared how many biosphere reserves? 18. 18 biosphere reserves are there. Like this, at the world level, internationally, there are many important biosphere reserves which are present and which are very much significant for the world's biodiversity. For example, Western Ghats of India, Nilgiri region, it's very, very rich in diversity of life. It is not only important for India, even for the world's diversity also it is important. Whether India is going to protect it or not, it becomes a responsibility at the international level for various organizations to involve in its conservation. To identify such kind of biosphere reserves at the international level, we have a program called as Man and Biosphere Program. Man and Biosphere Program, it is a program of UNESCO. It was launched in the year 1971. Okay, so basically, it is a program of UNESCO to develop some policy framework to scientifically study many of them and come to a conclusion, okay, how to manage these biosphere reserves and how to protect the biodiversity of the world. As a program जैसे हमने शुरू किया था. As a part of this Man and Biosphere Program, World Network of Biosphere Reserves were established. World Network of Biosphere Reserves were established in the year 1976. There are two things here. One is MAB, Man and Biosphere Program. It's a program. UNESCO का program है. यहाँ पर मिलके बात करेंगे क्या करना है, कैसे manage करना है. As a part of this, that was announced in 1971. As a part of this, they identified the important biosphere reserves at the world, and they make a network of such kind of biosphere reserves. We call them as the World's Network of Biosphere Reserve (WNBR). Okay, so this biosphere reserves network is maintained by UNESCO as a list. हमारे तरफ से एक important recognition है. इसको ये दुनिया के लिए important है. Whether you protect it or not, it becomes a responsibility for everyone to cooperate here. Maintain करना है, थोड़ा सा उनके ऊपर pressure डालना है जहाँ पर है. Those list is what is important here. Okay, so in that list, out of 18 in India, there are a total of 13 have become part of them. India का कितना है? 18 biosphere reserves are there. Till recently, 12 were there. Now one more has been added. Total of 13 biosphere reserves of India has become part of this World's Network of Biosphere Reserve. This is what is commonly referred to as the UNESCO recognized biosphere reserve. Okay, so what happens when UNESCO gives this recognition? Okay, so this is part of this World Network of Biosphere Reserve. What happens? Nothing happens. Biosphere reserve still is under the control of that particular country only. It is under the domestic control only. Okay, it's a common misconception. एक बार UNESCO recognition मिल गया तो UNESCO उसको ले लेगा अपने अंदर. It is just a recognition saying कि ये बहुत important है, इसके ऊपर थोड़ा सा ध्यान दो. Internationally, people will start to come visit. More research happens, more scientific developments happens. It may bring some funding, some protection. That is the idea. It will not take control of any of this local territory. Okay? So recently we have got the 13th one. And the procedure for inclusion in this biosphere network. देखो, सबसे पहले, the first step is the site has to be proposed by a member or associate member of UNESCO. There are two ways. One is member, associate member. You know about this UNESCO. Anyone who is part of this, they have to propose this. This is the first step. Once it is proposed, the MAB International Coordinating Council, MAB ICC, will consider this and it will accept. It will approve this. Okay, first step is the proposal by the member. Second step is the MAB International Coordinating Council will approve this. Once it is approved, the Director General of UNESCO will designate this on behalf of UNESCO. ये हमारा final है. There are three stages: proposal by the state, approval by the MAB ICC, and then designation by the Director General of UNESCO. Once it goes through this process, it is considered to be UNESCO recognized biosphere reserve. Okay, so ऐसे मिला है इंडिया में total of 13. This is what is called as the UNESCO World Network of Biosphere Reserves. And the interesting part is, in the future, if the status of these biosphere reserves are not maintained well, either the members want, they can also withdraw, or if UNESCO wants, even the UNESCO can also withdraw this designation if a reserve fails to meet the required standards. है ना? ये आगे जाके कोई भी हटा सकता है, ऐसे कोई हटा ही नहीं है, बट एक प्रोविजन रखा है. So now let's try to remember this 18 biosphere reserves of India. This is very, very important. इस साल ऐड हुआ है तो significantly important हो ही जाता है. There are total of 18 biosphere reserves. Okay, so let's try to quickly go through them. Okay, let's go from south to north. सबसे नीचे से है Great Nicobar. Okay, so I told you about this Great Nicobar, the southernmost island. That is where we have the Indira Point. Okay, so it is rich in diversity of life. Okay, so one of the very rare species are found over there, including the leatherback turtle, which comes every year for nesting, and that is where we are doing this, the Galatia Bay project. Okay, so of course it's slightly sensitive. Okay, we need that project also. We need to protect the life also. Dono karna hai. That is number one. Number two is the Gulf of Mannar, the region between India and Sri Lanka. Okay, so from let's say Rameshwaram up to Kanyakumari, that entire region is declared as the second biosphere reserve. It is India's first marine biosphere reserve. Okay, so marine area. It is known for pearl fishing, coral reefs as well as mangrove. Gulf of Mannar. थोड़ा सा ऊपर आ जाओ, आपको मिलता है अगस्त्य मलाई. अगस्त्य मलाई is part of the Western Ghats between Kerala and Tamil Nadu. Agastya Malai, it's a smaller one towards the southern part of Western Ghats. Okay, so Agastya Malai between Kerala and Tamil Nadu. This is the third one. Fourth one is our Nilgiri, the richest, most beautiful biosphere reserve. It is at the tri-junction of Karnataka, Kerala, and Tamil Nadu. This is where both Western Ghats and Eastern Ghats meet, and that will increase the diversity of life to much more higher level. Okay, so 4 ho gaya. Fifth one is just nearby, Sheshachalam Biosphere Reserve. It is part of Eastern Ghats. That is where we have Tirupati, Sheshachalam Hills. Okay, Tirupati region, right? That is fifth one. यहाँ पर नीचे 5 हो गया. अभी सेंटर में आ जाओ, यहाँ पर आपको 5 मिल जाएगा. मध्य प्रदेश, near to Satpura, we have the Pachmari. Okay, so Madhya Pradesh, near to this region, Satpura, we have the Pachmari. Sixth one. थोड़ा सा ऊपर जाओ, most famous, Panna. Panna is a biosphere reserve. Panna was a tiger reserve. Panna is a national park, right? A part of it has recently underwent submergence due to Ken-Betwa linkage project. It's a very well maintained tiger reserve. बहुत ही बढ़िया tiger reserve था. It has been lost because of Ken-Betwa project. ठीक है. Between Madhya Pradesh and Chhattisgarh, we have a biosphere reserve along the border. That is Achanakmar Amarkantak. Okay, so this is Achanakmar Amarkantak. Amarkantak सुना है? The source of Narmada and Son river. Okay, Narmada Son दोनों का है. Okay, so that is Achanakmar Amarkantak. 8th हो गया. ओडिशा में है 9th Simlipal, known for semul tree. Semul is a red silk tree. Semul tree, local tree, उसके नाम से रखा है Simlipal. Simlipal is also known for black tiger, not white tiger. Okay, so black tiger, melanistic tiger है. White tiger is from Rewa. And 10th भी बगल में है, वो है Sundarbans. Okay, Sundarbans is a national park. Sundarbans is a so Ramsar site. Sundarbans is a UNESCO heritage site. Sundarbans is also biosphere reserve. ठीक है, 10 हो गया. नॉर्थ ईस्ट में 5 है. दिस इज कंचनजुंगा, सिक्किम. मेघालय में नोक्रेक. Okay, so Nokrek is part of Garo Hills towards the westernmost part, very beautiful. असम में थोड़ा सा ऊपर है मानस. नॉर्थर्नमोस्ट पार्ट ऑफ असम दिब्रू साइकोवा. असम के अंदर 2 है, सिक्किम 1, मेघालय 1, असम 2, मानस एंड दिब्रू साइकोवा. दैट इज वेयर ब्रह्मपुत्र एंटर्स इनटू द प्लेन एरिया. डिब्रूगढ़ है ना, वहां पर दिब्रू साइकोवा. थोड़ा सा अरुणाचल के अंदर आ जाओ, दिहांग दिबांग बायोस्फीयर रिजर्व बिटवीन दिहांग एंड दिबांग. दिहांग इज ब्रह्मपुत्र, दिबांग इज द लेफ्ट बैंक ट्रिब्यूटरी ऑफ ब्रह्मपुत्र. दोनों के बीच में है दिहांग दिबांग बायोस्फीयर रिजर्व. यहाँ पर 5 हो गया. कितना हुआ? 15, 15. टुवर्ड्स हिमालयस वी हैव 2. उत्तराखंड में 1, नंदा देवी. हिमाचल में 1, कोल्ड डेजर्ट बायोस्फीयर. प्लीज रिमेंबर, कोल्ड डेजर्ट इज इन हिमाचल. वी टेंड टू थिंक लद्दाख के अंदर है ना. सो हिमाचल के अंदर है, बिहाइंड द ग्रेट हिमालयस. आई टेल यू लिटिल बिट डिटेल अबाउट दिस. यहाँ पर 2 हो गया. एंड देन कम्स द नॉफ कच्छ. टोटल ऑफ 18 डन. इन दिस नाउ 13 हैव गॉट रिकॉग्निशन. Either you can remember these 13 or you can remember those 5 which have not got the recognition. That is easier. जिसका recognition नहीं मिला है वो याद रखना easy है ना. शेषाचलम has not got it yet. ठीक है. And मानस and दिब्रू साइकोवा as well as दिहांग दिबांग तीनों नहीं मिला है. कच्छ also. ठीक है. नॉर्थ ईस्ट में कंचनजुंगा and Nokrek has got. मानस, दिब्रू साइकोवा and दिहांग दिबांग has not got yet. Among these, which is the largest one? Run of Kutch. Run of Kutch. The highest and coldest. कोल्ड डेजर्ट है ना. ठीक है. द रीसेंट एडिशन इज बेसिकली द कोल्ड डेजर्ट बायोस्फीयर रिजर्व. ओके, स्लाइड डिटेल्स अबाउट दिस. थोड़ा सा यहाँ पर डिटेल में देखते हैं कोल्ड डेजर्ट बायोस्फीयर रिजर्व. सो वेयर डू वी हैव दिस कोल्ड डेजर्ट बायोस्फीयर रिजर्व? So this is our Himalayas. We can see the snow line. The snow line represents the Great Himalayas. Permanent snow line throughout there. है ना. उसके नीचे है Middle Himalayas and Shivaliks. So there are certain regions behind the Great Himalayas. Because of the rain shadow effect, they are dry. There's not much of vegetation. There's not much of rainfall. Of course, the entire Ladakh is that region. Tibet is that region. There is a very small region in Himachal. Can you see this? ये जो लाइन के पीछे है, this is the Great Himalayas. इसके पीछे ये सारा जो पार्ट है हिमाचल में, this is totally similar to Ladakh. It's inside Himachal. Very few people know about this. This region is designated as the cold desert biosphere reserve. This is where we have the very famous Lahaul Spiti Valley. Lahaul Spiti Valley of Himachal. Great Himalayas के पीछे. Once you cross Manali and Rohtang, you will enter that area. Okay, so बहुत ही सुंदर है, बहुत ही beautiful है. Rainfall is less, dry area, very similar to Ladakh. है ना. जहाँ पर rain shadow effect है, obviously it is behind the Great Himalayas, right? Here there are very important, मतलब almost similar है, लद्दाख जैसे ही है, थोड़ा सा अलग है because of lower latitude. Latitude थोड़ा सा नीचे हो गया, है ना. So there are a few important locations here. We can expect a question here. एक बार क्वेश्चन आया है, अगस्त्य मलाई के अंदर कौन कौन सा प्रोटेक्टेड एरियाज है? Okay, so because the biosphere reserve is a very large area, within that there may be many smaller ones. What are the important protected areas under the cold desert biosphere reserve? Pin Valley National Park. Pin Valley National Park is part of this. It's a national park. Kibber Wildlife Sanctuary. Kibber. Kibber Wildlife Sanctuary is part of this. And the very famous Chandratal. Chandratal is a Ramsar site. Chandratal is a Ramsar site which is part of this. Chandratal is also source of Chandra River, which is Chenab River. Chandra and Baga. Baga comes from Surajtal. Chandra comes from Chandratal. Both of them merge together to become Chenab. So this is also the origin of Chenab River. Chenab River comes from this region only. What are the important wildlife present in this cold desert biosphere reserve? Obviously, very very important is snow leopard, the ghost of the mountain. Snow leopard. क्यों बुलाते हैं इसको ghost of the mountain बोल के? Because many times, if at all you're traveling in this region, there is a very high chance that you might not have noticed this, but this has noticed you. It will not hunt human beings. Okay, so human beings are not natural prey to any big cat species. Okay? Unless you go in front of it and disturb it. So other than the snow leopard, ibex, which is a natural prey, ibex, Himalayan wolf, and blue sheep. Blue sheep. Of course, you don't find the double-humped camel here. Double-humped camel is present only in Ladakh. कौन सी वैली में? Nubra Valley. Nubra Valley में मिलता है double-humped camel. What is double-humped camel called as? Bactrian. Bactrian, not bacteria. Bactrian. Bactrian camel. दो hump रहता है. ठीक है? ये इसका है. I hope you have got the idea. You want me to repeat this anything? देखो पहली पॉइंट है कि बायोस्फीयर रिजर्व क्या होता है? What is बायोस्फीयर रिजर्व? Second point is what is this MAB? Man and Biosphere Reserve Program. Third is that network. Network तो बाद में आया. What is the criteria for this? मतलब 3 स्टेप है ना? तो 3 स्टेप के थ्रू होना चाहिए. वो कभी वापस भी ले सकता है. परमानेंट तो नहीं है. And you have to remember all the 18 biosphere reserves. In that, how many of them have got UNESCO? In that cold desert थोड़ा सा डिटेल में देखना है. Wildlife Protection Act. For those who don't know about this Wildlife Protection Act, let me just give you a brief idea. In India, the entire forest and wildlife of India becomes a concurrent list. It's a concurrent list. Forest as well as wildlife. Okay, so we have state list, concurrent list, union list. You know, polity to pata hai. To protect the forest of India, we have an act that is called as Indian Forest Act, 1927. Indian Forest Act just governs the vegetation forest of India. There is no clear-cut provision for the wildlife. To protect the wildlife of India, we have the Wildlife Protection Act of 1972. Okay? This Wildlife Protection Act has 3 major parts. Okay, so as such, not legally defined. समझने के लिए बता रहा हूँ. पहली बात है कि there are certain authorities and bodies established under this Wildlife Protection Act. For example, the National Board for Wildlife, State Board for Wildlife, Chief Wildlife Warden, Director and Assistant Director. Okay, so Central Zoo Authority. These are the bodies that are established under this Wildlife Protection Act, specifically with specific powers to deal with this wildlife. मतलब प्रोटेक्ट करना है तो कैसे करना है, वो सारा इसके अंदर आ जाएगा. जब पढ़ोगे डिटेल में पढ़ लेना. Each of them उसका पावर क्या है, कौन अपॉइंट करता है, okay, so कैसे वो फंक्शन करते हैं, ये सारा डिटेल में होना चाहिए. Second thing about the schedules. The list of wildlife which is protected in India are given in 2 lists: Schedule 1, Schedule 2. Schedule 3 is plants. Schedule 4 is the animals which are listed under CITES. अभी CITES क्या होता है? It's an international convention to deal with the trade in endangered species. Okay, so Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species of Flora and Fauna. उसको हम बोलते हैं CITES. वहाँ पर जो लिस्ट किया है वो यहाँ पर ऑटोमेटिकली शेड्यूल 4 के अंदर आ जाएगा. वो कनेक्शन आपको समझ आएगा when you study this wildlife protection. Second aspect is about the schedules. ठीक है? Third aspect is about the establishment of protected areas. Protected areas which are established in India, National Park, Wildlife Sanctuary, Conservation Reserve, Community Reserve, they are defined legally under the Wildlife Protection Act. उसको कैसे होते हैं, what are the differences, what are the provisions, मतलब कौन उसका responsibility है, वो सारा डिटेल में डिस्कस करते हैं. यही है हमारा Wildlife Protection Act बेसिकली. 3 पार्ट्स में हम स्टडी करते हैं. वन इज अथॉरिटी, सेकंड इज शेड्यूल्स, थर्ड वन इज प्रोटेक्टेड एरियाज. अभी जो न्यूज़ में है ये है. ठीक है. इन द ईयर 2023 द सेंट्रल गवर्नमेंट मेड अमेंडमेंट टू दिस एक्ट. Okay, central government made amendment to this act, Wildlife Protection Act, Wildlife Protection Amendment Act. Through this amendment, these schedules were changed. Before this amendment, there was a total of 6 schedules. 6 schedules were there. That has been rationalized into 4 schedules. Okay, so 4 schedules कैसे rationalize हुआ था? Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. चाहिए था ना? These 4 were merged together as 1 and 2. Earlier, there were 4 different categories, and each category would have a different grade of punishment. Let's say someone kills a Schedule 1 animal, highest punishment. Someone kills Schedule 4 animal, lowest punishment. बीच में डिक्रीज होते जाएगा. Over a period of time, all of them have become important. इतना क्यों डिस्क्रिमिनेट करना है बेचारे उनके बीच में? बोला कि 2 ही कर लो, एक हायर होगा, एक लोअर होगा. दोनों के लिए पनिशमेंट मिलेगा, थोड़ा सा ज़्यादा, थोड़ा सा कम. रैशनलाइज हो गया. Schedule 5 was plants. Okay, so plants जो wild variety of plants है important है, उसको प्रोटेक्ट करने के लिए उसको हमने बना दिया Schedule 3. Schedule 6 is important. That is what is in news. Schedule 6 was called as vermin. Vermin animal. What is a vermin animal? A wild animal which has become menace or a threat to human life. menace मतलब वो threat नहीं है, but खराब करते जा रहे हैं, agriculture field को खराब करेगा, property को खराब करेगा, that is what is menace. और another one is it has become a threat. All such wild animals are called as vermin. Earlier there was a separate schedule for vermin. Any animal which is part of the schedule can be killed by anyone. उसके लिए punishment नहीं होगा ऐसे. यहाँ पर कोई ऐसा मार दिया तो उनके लिए punishment होगा, तो यहाँ पर vermin को मारा तो punishment नहीं होगा. This was highly criticized because it was implemented in 1972. 1972 में तो ठीक है उतना ज़्यादा important नहीं था. Over a period of time it has become significant that any wild animal is important. Why should we kill it? Even if we are killing, we should take it as an exception. Why should we make a separate schedule on this and put it under the Wildlife Protection Act only? This is going against the spirit of Wildlife Protection Act itself. Okay, so with that intention, we removed the schedule only. When the amendment was made in 2023, the entire 6th schedule was removed. Okay, so vermin वाला provision ही हटा दिया, and that provision was added as a separate, section में आ गया, not as a schedule. Then what is this 4th schedule? 4th schedule is the animals which are listed under CITES. Okay, so ये पढ़ लेना थोड़ा सा connection क्या है समझ आएगा. Our discussion is vermin. Now, vermin is any wild animal which has gone wild or which has become menace and which is causing a damage to human beings. When the amendment was made, the provision was changed. It is on case-to-case basis. After a thorough study, the central government will declare any animal as a vermin on a given specified area for a given specified time period. ठीक है, ऐसे कोई एनिमल वर्मिन नहीं हो सकते जो परमानेंटली वर्मिन है. ओनली ऑन केस टू केस बेसिस, ओनली ऑन ए लिमिटेड एरिया विल डिक्लेयर इट, विल स्टडी दिस एंड देन विल डिक्लेयर. फॉर एग्जांपल, सो few years ago in the northern plains in UP MP region, okay, so nilgai had become vermin. Nilgai was declared. If somebody kills nilgai, you know nilgai, it's a deer species, very tall and muscular. Okay, so if somebody kills it, they will not be punished for this. Okay, like this. And it was decided that this will be decided on case to case basis. Let's not keep it as a separate list only. Why to make it as a separate list? Okay. So that power lies with the central government. Okay, the power lies with the central government. Whenever particularly an animal has become a threat to the human life. मान लो some animal has become a some man eater. Some animal is frequently invading into the villages and trying to kill human beings. In that case, the decision to kill that animal is taken by the chief wildlife warden, who is the major authority at the state. He is the main person. जैसे state में जैसे हमारा वो रहता है ना, administration में, so we have the chief secretary. Wildlife के context में chief wildlife warden is the senior most civil servant. He will be the person who will take the decision, and he will take the decision after thorough assessment. If that wild animal cannot be captured, if that wild animal cannot be tranquilized, or if it cannot be transported, then we will give an order for killing, and that too not anyone can come and kill. ऐसा नहीं कि order दे दे तो सब लोग जाके मारेंगे उसको. A specialized person will be called. Only he will have the power, and he will go and kill that animal. For that he will not be punished. Obviously, इसको बुलाया इसलिए है ना. ये provision है, ठीक है. This is what is changed and recently added in the amendment. And this was questioned in the Kerala state legislature. Okay, so Kerala में थोड़ा बहुत there were a good number of human wildlife conflict, particularly related to elephants, as well as some of the monkeys which invade these plantations. Okay, so there was like ये तो vermin का और killing का जो provision है बहुत ही strict कर दिया. ये तो बहुत मुश्किल हो जाएगा हमारे लिए. Okay, so based on the popular demand, the state legislative assembly, Kerala State Legislative Assembly, brought an amendment to this Wildlife Protection Act. Through this amendment, it made few of the provisions slightly liberal. The first provision is the provision to kill any animal. वहाँ पर क्या था? Chief Wildlife Warden will give the order for killing only if it cannot be captured, cannot be tranquilized, cannot be transported. In that case, only will give the order. यहाँ पर उतना जरूरी नहीं है. If any wild animal enters any human habitation, or if it threatens any human beings, if it has already attacked a human being, it can be killed. थोड़ा सा liberal कर दिया, है ना? Because so the plantations वहाँ पर है ना बहुत ही so agriculture community over a period of time they have developed, and there is a greater reliance on them. It becomes difficult for them. And second, in few of the cases, schedule 1 में जो animal है उसको 1-2 को ट्रांसफर कर दिया schedule 2 को. वहाँ पर एक जो animal है वो है bonnet macaque. What is macaque? Rhesus macaque तो आपने सुना है. This is rhesus macaque, very commonly found monkey in India, and this is not endemic to India. What do you mean by endemic species? Endemic is something which is exclusive. खाली यहाँ पर ही मिलता है और कहीं भी नहीं मिलता. ये बहुत जगह में मिलता है. Okay, so West Asia, South Asia, some of the African countries you will find them. It's called as rhesus macaque. Another one which is found in India, which is endemic to India, endemic to South India particularly, वो है bonnet macaque. Okay, so it's given the name bonnet because of the way its hair is present. उसका जो ऊपर head ऐसे bonnet जैसे दिखता है, कार के bonnet जैसे, इसलिए bonnet macaque. It is endemic species. This is part of schedule 1. ये schedule 1 का part है. Kerala government through this amendment has transferred this to schedule 2. Because sometimes it becomes menace in the plantation. है ना, थोड़ा सा बहुत ही strict punishment इसको मुश्किल हो जाएगा बोल के उसको schedule 2 के अंदर ट्रांसफर कर दिया. ये दो मेजर चेंजेस किया है. The permission for killing animals, second is the transfer of bonnet macaque from schedule 1 to schedule 2. Now comes the actual question: is it legal? Is it legally valid for a state legislature to change the central law? Wildlife Protection Act is a central law. बताइए, अभी पॉलिटी वाला तो एक्सपर्ट्स होंगे. They can bring different law on the same subject, but the Kerala government has amended the Wildlife Protection Act. They introduced, अभी तो amendment पास भी कर दिया इन लोगों ने. It has been passed also. Amendment to Wildlife Protection Act of 1972. Any subject which is in the concurrent list can be legislated by both center as well as state. But if the same law is there, it is the central law which will so supersede over the state law. है ना? But पहले law तो center का आ गया, बाद में इन लोगों ने amend किया है. बट ये तो नया लॉ तो नहीं किया है ना, जो ऑलरेडी एग्जिस्टिंग लॉ का अमेंड किया है. In that case, it will go to the president. If president gives assent, this will prevail. Okay, so but still the parliament holds the power to change it anytime. इन लोगों ने बस पास किया है, प्रेसिडेंट तक तो आया नहीं है. Okay, so आगे जाना भी मुश्किल है ना, तो आपको पता ही है. Okay, so that is the news. Okay, I hope you get the connection. जो मैंने पूरा स्टार्टिंग से बताया, वाइल्ड लाइफ प्रोटेक्शन एक्ट, recent amendment which changed the schedules in that the vermin related and also related to killing animals. Okay, killing के लिए जो प्रोसीजर था and also the schedule change. इसके वजह से so Kerala has recently so made the amendments. So next, biodiversity. We have Biodiversity Act, that is 2002. तो सबसे पहले यहां पर कनेक्शन है the UN CBD, UN Convention on Biological Diversity. This is one of the 3 conventions which was the outcome of Rio Earth Summit. 1992 Rio Summit resulted in 3 main conventions. Okay, so first of all, what is a convention? यही पता नहीं तो क्या पढ़ाएं? What is a convention? In the context of environment, what is a convention? What is a protocol? What is the agreement? Okay, agreement. Okay, I'll tell you. Convention is just a broader grouping where all the different interested parties come together and they agree on some common problem. कन्वेंशन में बेसिकली ज्यादा कुछ एक्शन नहीं लेंगे. कन्वेंशन में बस ये बोलेंगे कि ठीक है, सब मिलकर काम करना है. कन्वेंशन इज मच मोर ब्रॉडर इन नेचर. Okay, so we have the major crisis, major environmental issues. For biodiversity protection, we have UNCBD, UN Convention on Biological Diversity. When we say this, all the members have agreed that we have to fight together to protect the biodiversity. For climate change, we have a convention that is UNFCCC. Okay, so that is United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. For desertification, you have UNCBD. Sorry, CCD. These are the 3 conventions which were result of 1992 Rio Earth Summit. Fine. कन्वेंशन में ज्यादा कुछ नहीं होते, तो लोग मिलकर अग्री करते हैं कि हाँ, इसको हमें मतलब फाइट करना है. फॉर एग्जांपल, वियना कन्वेंशन वाज प्रोटेक्टिंग द ओजोन लेयर. ठीक है. नाउ विद इन द कन्वेंशन, एवरी ईयर और एवरी वंस इन 2 years or 3 years, ऑल द मेंबर्स विल मीट एंड दैट मीटिंग इज व्हाट इज कॉल्ड एज द कॉन्फ्रेंस ऑफ पार्टीज. सीओपी बुलाते हैं उसको. एवरी कन्वेंशन विल हैव इट्स ओन सीओपी. जो सबसे कॉमनली हम सीओपी मेंशन करते हैं वो यूएनएफसीसी का क्लाइमेट चेंज का जो सीओपी है. अदरवाइज यूएनसीबीडी आल्सो हैज इट्स ओन सीओपी, यूएनसीसीडी आल्सो हैज इट्स ओन सीओपी, वियना आल्सो हैज इट्स ओन सीओपी, रामसर आल्सो हैज इट्स ओन सीओपी. ठीक है. When every member meet and discuss, then they come to some specific action. And when they settle on some particular specific targeted action, that is what is called as a protocol or agreement. If it has a very clearly defined rules and regulation, it will be called as a protocol. If it is a broader agreement where they just decide the target and then they agree to fulfill it, that is called as agreement. For example, Kyoto Protocol is a protocol, Paris is agreement. Both protocol and agreement comes within the broader convention. Convention के अंदर होगा. ठीक है, ये clear है? To protect the biological diversity of the earth, in 1992 we agreed on a convention, that is all the members, now 196 members agreed on a convention which is called as UNCBD. Overall objective of UNCBD to protect the biological diversity. There are 3 main parts of this. इसके अंदर 3 जो objective है. Okay, so you have to remember this. Number 1, biodiversity conservation. That is protect the biodiversity of the earth. Number 2, sustainable use of biological resources. मतलब जो भी biological resources है, we have to use them in a sustainable manner. That means our usage should not cause its depletion. इसको पूरा खत्म नहीं करना चाहिए हमें. We have to use them in a sustainable manner. First of all, why do we have to use them? Use करना ही ban कर दे, फिर हमारा जीना कैसे होगा? Our life is dependent upon biodiversity, whether it is fishing or wood or agriculture. Okay, so or any kind of so let's say climatic regulation, everything is dependent upon biodiversity. We have to use them in a sustainable manner. Third is the most important one: fair and equitable sharing of benefits. Fair and equitable sharing of benefits. Any part of biodiversity is actually protected by local community, and the local community should get the benefits of that protection. If somebody is coming into the forest and making a medicine out of this particular plant species, वो वहाँ से उठा के उससे medicine बना दिया, he will take the benefits, he will take all the profits. But the local people who have protected this, what about them? They should get a fair share of it. That is called the fair and equitable sharing of benefits. 3 objectives are there. And इसी को ही fulfill करने के लिए एक protocol भी implement हुआ था, that is called as the Nagoya Protocol. Nagoya from Japan, 2010 we implemented this protocol. Nagoya Protocol deals with the fair and equitable sharing of benefits only. ठीक है? वो तो 2010 में आया था. Once we signed this convention, as a party to this, to implement this, we brought an act called as Biodiversity Act of 2002. In India, we brought this act. है ना? हमने तो बहुत पहले साइन कर दिया था ना. So we said we will protect the biological diversity of India and we'll also ensure the benefits coming out of this biodiversity is also shared in fair and equitable manner. That is why we have the Biodiversity Act of 2002. Under this Biodiversity Act of 2002, 3 bodies, 3 different levels of organizations are there. At the national level, it is National Biodiversity Authority, which is a nodal agency for protecting the biodiversity of India. Okay, so NBA. At the state level, State Biodiversity Board. Okay, so don't get confused here. It's not SBA, it's SBB, State Biodiversity Board at the state level. And at the local level, it is called as Biodiversity Management Committee. BMC. In this, the most important one is Biodiversity Management Committee, because the actual powers and actual function is at the local level only. It can be at subdivisional level or divisional level or group of few villages also, wherever there is a rich diversity, accordingly it is decided. ठीक है? The basic purpose क्या है? इंडिया में इतने सारे rich biodiversity है, whenever somebody is utilizing this, we have to ensure that there is no misuse of this. We have to ensure that the benefits arising out of this is shared equitably with the local community. इसलिए इतना सारा हमने रिस्ट्रिक्शन लगाया और इसके लिए ही पूरा एक्ट लेके आया, बायोडाइवर्सिटी एक्ट. ठीक है? This biodiversity act was also recently amended in 2022. It was amended, few changes were made. I want you to go through this. This is the background here. ठीक है? Now, recently, the National Biodiversity Authority has made some regulation. Regulation क्या होता है? मतलब एक्ट के अंदर जो पावर दे दिया, उस पावर को बेसिस में रखते हुए थोड़ा सा और डिटेल रूल्स बना दिया. New regulations have been made together, and these are the important regulations, the 2025 regulations. Okay, so there are a few important ones here. The earlier one was 2014. After the recent amendment, जो 2022 amendment के बाद में थोड़ा सा हमने regulations को change किया. What are the important regulations here? The first important regulation which is added, in fact, new rule which is added here: inclusion of digital sequence information or associated knowledge as a mode of benefit sharing for accessing biological resources. See, before till recently also, like let's say 5-10 years before also, when we say biodiversity utilization, अगर हम कोई biodiversity utilization access का बात किया तो we used to think about the physical access. We're taking some product from the forest. We're taking a particular plant species. We're taking some particular fruits or flower and making a product out of this. Now the times are changing. You don't have to take it physically. Rather, use its genetic information also. The genetic material, genetic coding can also be used and make some product. And all such information is what is called as digital sequence information. When the original act was made, this was not there. Now this is a new. This was also accepted in the latest COP of UNCBD. Okay, so digital sequence information को बहुत ही important biological resource मानना चाहिए. If somebody is accessing this, even he should share the benefits with the locals. Yes or no? If somebody is taking, let's say, somebody is coming to Western Ghats and understanding the local community and researching over there, is particularly एक particular microbe के ऊपर थोड़ा सा research करके उसका genetic information ले लिया, उसके थ्रू बहुत ही rare disease को cure करने वाला medicine बना दिया और बहुत ही मतलब उससे पैसा आ जाएगा. Who has protected this entire area? The local community of Western Ghats. They should get the benefits out of this. They should also be getting the benefits out of this, right? इसी को इसलिए हमने इसको भी इंक्लूड किया, द इंक्लूजन ऑफ डिजिटल सीक्वेंस इंफॉर्मेशन और एसोसिएटेड नॉलेज एज ए मोड ऑफ बेनिफिट शेयरिंग फॉर एक्सेसिंग बायोलॉजिकल रिसोर्सेज. टिल नाउ इट वाज मेनली द फिजिकल रिसोर्सेज, नाउ इवन द डिजिटल सीक्वेंसिंग आल्सो बिकम्स ए रिसोर्स. सेकंड, the slabs were delineated based on the annual turnover. मतलब if a company is making use of the biodiversity and they're making some annual turnover, based on their turnover we will decide how much of benefit sharing should be done. If a company is making, okay, so up to 5 crore turnover, up to 5 crore टर्नओवर के लिए नील होगा, ज्यादा कुछ नहीं है तो शुरुआत कर रहे हैं, चलो करने दो. And up to it goes up to 0.6% for turnover up to 250 crore. Okay, so you don't have to remember the exact numbers, वो तो नहीं याद नहीं रहेगा, but you have to remember that the benefit sharing is not equal, it is not something uniform. Based on the turnover, the slabs will be decided. ठीक है? And benefit sharing for high value biological resources, for example red sanders, अगर वो they are very high value, आप लोगों ने देखा है पुष्पा, in that case it should not be less than 5% of the proceeds from the auction or sale. Okay, so यहाँ पर तो 0.1%, 0.6% ऐसा नहीं होगा, minimum तो 5% देना ही चाहिए. Okay, so ऐसे हुआ है. And one more important one I'll tell you. This is IPR commercialization. Okay, so initially let's say some company just applied for IPR. They made a research and based on the research they just applied for IPR. They got a patent. They did not actually made a product out of this. Okay, so later they converted into product, IPR commercialization. In that case they have to share 1% of annual sales revenue with the NBA. Original law के अंदर ये भी provision है, if somebody is applying for IPR he has to take the approval from NBA. तभी उनको approval भी मिलेगा, तभी उनको patent भी मिलेगा. Okay, so in order to avoid in order to avoid the biopiracy, somebody is so stealing from here the India's traditional knowledge and making some so big patented product somewhere else. To avoid this, we have this so a very strict regulation. Anyone who is applying for patent has to take the permission from National Biodiversity Authority. Okay, so अभी उसको commercialize कर लिया तो उसका 1% annual sales revenue भी share करना पड़ेगा. ठीक है? You don't have to go in too detail here. Just remember the broad points. DSI include हो गया. The benefit sharing, access and benefit sharing is based on the slabs. It is not uniform. And if somebody is commercializing this, then also the revenue sharing will start. Okay, so ये मैंने background में बताया. इंटीग्रेटेड डेवलपमेंट ऑफ वाइल्ड लाइफ हैबिटेट स्कीम मैंने बताया था, ये स्कीम है. इसको थोड़ा सा हल्का सा डिटेल में पढ़ता है. ठीक है, दिस इज बिकॉज़ दिस इज अम्ब्रेला स्कीम. आई टेल यू अबाउट दिस. So in the context of wildlife protection, there are a good number of schemes made by the government. What are the famous schemes which you have heard? क्या क्या सुना है आप लोगों ने? Any schemes in the context of wildlife protection? नहीं सुना है क्या? Project Tiger, Project Elephant, Project Vulture, then Snow Leopard, Cheetah, recent one, and Rhino Vision, India Rhino Vision ऐसे. डुगांग के लिए प्रोजेक्ट है क्या? ठीक है. ये सारा प्रोजेक्ट में क्या होता है? सो स्पेसिफिक वाइल्ड लाइफ इज टारगेटेड. सबसे ओरिजिनल है प्रोजेक्ट टाइगर 1973. because we started, we have completed 50 years. Okay, so 50 years में बहुत ही बढ़िया काम किया प्रोजेक्ट टाइगर में. Okay, so right now we have more than 75% of the world's tigers in India only. It's one of the very commendable job Indian Forest Department as well as NTC. ऐसे अलग अलग प्रोजेक्ट्स करना शुरू किया था. ग्रेजुअली हमने सोचा कि एक अम्ब्रेला स्कीम भी होना चाहिए जहां पर पूरा वाइल्ड लाइफ रिलेटेड सारा के सारा कवर करना चाहिए. दैट इज व्हेन वी स्टार्टेड दिस इंटीग्रेटेड डेवलपमेंट ऑफ वाइल्ड लाइफ हैबिटेट स्कीम. Integrated Development of Wildlife Habitat Scheme was introduced in the year 2008 as an umbrella scheme covering the entire wildlife of India. सारा wildlife के लिए. It is a centrally sponsored scheme. Okay, so first point, it's an umbrella scheme covering all the wildlife of India, started in 2008. Okay, so second is, it is a centrally sponsored scheme. What is a centrally sponsored scheme? Where the funding is given to the state and the state will implement this. A central sector scheme is the one where the central government itself will implement the scheme. Centrally sponsored, the funding will be given to the state, and there is a funding sharing. Okay, I'll give you 50%, you add 50%, or I'll give you 70%, you add 30%, 60, 40, ऐसे होगा. Scheme to scheme vary होगा. That is what is a centrally sponsored scheme. Funding will be given, and the state has to implement this. Under this, there are three components. The three components to this integrated development of wildlife habitat scheme. The first one is the protection of supporting the protected areas. Okay, so sorry. First one is supporting the protected areas. I told you about the protected areas. India में जो legally defined protected areas कितना है? 4 national parks, wildlife sanctuary, conservation reserve, community reserve. If there is any wildlife within this, and that wildlife will be protected under this. मतलब ये scheme उसी के लिए है, उसके लिए financial assistance मिल जाएगा. The first part is the wildlife within the protected areas. Second, the protection of wildlife outside the protected areas. You know, there is a large number of wildlife beyond the protected areas. National park, wildlife sanctuary से बाहर भी है. For example, snow leopard. More than 70% of snow leopards in India, that is in Himalayas, they are beyond the protected areas. बताओ. मतलब उनके लिए भी तो थोड़ा बहुत काम होना चाहिए. We need to protect their habitat and all. So that is the second part. The third part is recovery program for species. This is all species together. This is all species together. This is specifically for certain species who are like degrading too much, whose numbers are drastically declining. In that, the government has identified a total of 22 species. Total of 22 species were identified, and for them specifically हम काम करना शुरू करेंगे. And that becomes a hint for you to focus upon. है ना? So इंडिया का important जो species क्या क्या है, अगर ऐसा क्वेश्चन आया तो यहाँ से आप डायरेक्टली उठा सकते हो. तो देखो, these are the important ones which are listed under the species recovery program of integrated development of wildlife habitat, and these are the 22 species which are listed under it. एक बार go through कर लो. 22 species are here. Asiatic lion, snow leopard, 3 bustard species are there in India. कौन कौन सा है bustard? Great Indian bustard, lesser florican, Bengal bustard. All 3 bustards come here. Dolphin, river dolphins, okay, Gangetic dolphin, Irrawaddy dolphin, third dolphin, Indus dolphin. It's there in only Bias river. Bias में है. Hangul, Kashmir stag, नीलगिरी तार. ये कौन सा तार है? महिंद्रा तार. It's THR, not THR. It's a goat species, mountain goat species. Okay, so there's one Himalayan tar, another is Nilgiri tar. Okay, so marine turtles, all marine turtles which comes to India. Okay, so dugong, sea cow, edible nest swiftlet. Have you heard of this? Why it is called as edible nest? It's a very small bird which makes a nest in the corner of the house. Okay, so घर के मतलब एक कोने में जाके nest बनाता है. कैसे? By secreting saliva. Saliva secrete करते करते, and that nest is eaten by Chinese. Yeah, चाइना में सब कुछ खाता है, ये भी खाता है. वहां से नाम आया है एडिबल नेस्ट स्विफ्टलेट. बहुत ही छोटा सा बर्ड है, ब्लैक कलर रहता है. इट फ्लाइज वेरी वेरी फास्ट. ओके, सो एडिबल नेस्ट स्विफ्टलेट. एशियन वाइल्ड बफेलो, वेरी बिग साइज बफेलो, नॉट गौर. गौर अलग है, एशियाटिक वाइल्ड बफेलो अलग है. निकोबार मेगापॉड इज ए बर्ड. निकोबार में मिलता है. इट इज एंडेमिक ओवर देयर. ठीक है. मणिपुर ब्रो एंटलर डीर, आल्सो कॉल्ड एज संगाई डीर. ठीक है. वल्चर, ऑल वल्चर स्पीशीज ऑफ इंडिया. मलाबार सिवेट इज क्रिटिकली एंडेंजर्ड स्पीशीज. सिवेट स्पीशीज ऐसे कैट जैसे थोड़ा सा लंबा दिखता है. इंडियन राइनो, वन हॉर्न राइनो. स्वैम्प डीर, क्या नाम है इसका? बारहसिंगा. ओके, सो जेराडॉन स्कोर्जर इज अ वेरी वेरी रेयर बर्ड. आंध्र प्रदेश में मिलता है, एक पर्टिकुलर वाइल्ड लाइफ सेंचुरी के अंदर मिलता है. नॉर्दर्न रिवर टेरापिन, इट्स ए टॉर्टॉइस काइंड. टेरापिन, टर्टल, टॉर्टॉइस, वेरी सिमिलर. इसको बोलते हैं बताकर बस का. क्लाउडेड लेपर्ड, वी नो अबाउट क्लाउडेड लेपर्ड. Okay, so it's not a big cat species, small cat species. Arabian Sea humpback whale species which is usually found in Arabian Sea. Okay, so red panda, we know about red panda. Okay, so and then caracal. Caracal क्या होता है? Desert cat. Okay, desert cat. These are the 22 species which are important. इसके बारे में आप थोड़ा सा डिटेल में जाना. ठीक है, बहुत ही डिटेल में नहीं. Basically you need to understand what is their IUCN status. IUCN status तो पता होना ही चाहिए. And then what is their habitat? Where does it live? Which part of India? Behavior. Okay, so important behavior, cover them. आपका major India का cover हो जाएगा. इसके अलावा there are few other important ones which are not covered under this. Okay, so obviously tiger is not covered because tiger का अलग सा project है. Tiger, cheetah, leopard, fishing cat. Okay, so Asiatic elephant, sloth bear, sarus crane, black-necked crane, mashir is important. Okay, so यूपीएससी में आया था. Himalayan thar मैंने बताया था. Indian bison, gaur, wild ass, Tibetan wild ass, hola gibbon, pangolin, pygmy hog, lion-tailed macaque, golden langur, capped langur, नीलगिरी langur and the deer species. Okay, so other species ये भी इंपॉर्टेंट है, इसके साथ में ऐड ऑन करना, ये इसके अंदर नहीं, 22 के अंदर नहीं, ठीक है. If you read these in detail, आपका almost वाइल्ड लाइफ कवर हो जाएगा. Now the news is, along with this 22, two more is proposed to be added. The Standing Committee on the National Board for Wildlife has recommended two more species to be added to the Species Recovery Program. 22 से 24 करने के लिए बोला है. So one of them is the sloth bear. Okay, so ये जो sloth bear है, इसको भी ऐड करने ऐसे बोला है. इसके साथ में घड़ियाल. Okay, so I have not added the crocodile here. Please add crocodiles here. There are 3 crocodile species in India. कौन कौन सा? घड़ियाल, मगर, saltwater crocodile. है ना? घड़ियाल is the one which is longer nose and a bulb at the end. ना घड़ जैसे ऐसे दिखा है ना, that is घड़ियाल. Okay, so crocodile जो मगर बोलते हैं, that is मगर normal one, so fresh water, and salt water is the bigger one, a very big size one. In that, recent recommendation is that sloth bear and gharial to be added to the species recovery program. Okay, so gharial and sloth bear were recommended for the inclusion under the species recovery program. Who has recommended this? The Standing Committee on National Board for Wildlife. वो accept करना है, फिर implement होगा. Who heads the National Board for Wildlife? Prime Minister. अभी दोनों स्पीशीज के बारे में ब्रीफली बताता हूँ. घड़ियाल तो हम जानते हैं. Okay, we know about घड़ियाल. Okay, it is known for its this. Okay, so a round bulb-shaped structure at the end of the nose, which is nose itself is very longer. I guess mouth and nose part is very longer, elongated and slimmer. That is what is gharial. Gharial is critically endangered according to IUCN Red List. Critically endangered. It lives in fresh water. Its natural habitat is the entire Ganga and its tributary in the entire northern plains of India. पूरा northern plains of India में एक टाइम में बहुत ज़्यादा था. And because of pollution, because of degradation, it has drastically declined. Right now, nearly 90% of it is present in Chambal. Chambal के अंदर ही सबसे ज़्यादा मिलता है. Doesn't mean that it is not found. It is found up to Brahmaputra also. Brahmaputra में भी है. Okay, so गंगा में भी है, बहुत सारे ट्रिब्यूटरीज में. पहले तो बहुत ज़्यादा था, अभी बहुत ड्रास्टिकली कम हो गया. This what is critically endangered. ठीक है, इसको इंक्लूड करने के लिए बात हुआ है. The second one is the sloth bear. Among the many bear species in India, sloth bear is very common, particularly in the peninsular region. Okay, from MP to Maharashtra, Karnataka, Telangana, Andhra Pradesh, this region it's very common. Okay, so how this sloth bear is different from the other bear species? Okay, so one important characteristic, it doesn't undergo hibernation. Bears undergo hibernation during the winter. Sloth bear doesn't undergo hibernation because ये तो पूरा dry region में रहते हैं, वहाँ पर winter नहीं होता है. Okay, so second, hunting. It is very hunting करता है. मतलब normally hunting नहीं करता है, ठीक है. It feeds on the ants and termites usually. Otherwise, it becomes very aggressive. उसको छेड़ के देखो, पता चलेगा. ठीक है. So other bears hunt very easily. ठीक है. That is one of them. Other than this, slightly nocturnal in nature. ये भी क्वेश्चन आया था एक बार 2 साल पहले, सांबर नॉक्टर्नल है या नहीं है, तो याद रख लो. ठीक है. सो नॉक्टर्नल इन नेचर. एंड इसका बहुत ही स्पेशलिटी है कि इसका जो फिंगर नेल है हुक टाइप होता है. इट्स ईजियर टू सो स्क्रैच आउट एंड रिमूव द एंट्स एंड टर्माइट्स एंड फीड ऑन इट. ठीक है. तो मेनली लिव्स इन अ ड्राई लैंड एरिया ऑफ पेनिnsula plateau region. There's one dedicated sloth bear sanctuary in India. That is what is Daroji Sloth Bear Sanctuary in Karnataka. Daroji. ठीक है. It's dedicated for sloth bear sanctuary only. And they're usually solitary. They live alone. Of course, female sloth bears live with the cubs. Once the cubs so enter the adulthood, they leave. They're usually solitary. They're very aggressive. Behavior is unpredictable. It can so अगर इतना भी उसका दिमाग खराब हो गया तो टाइगर के ऊपर भी अटैक कर सकता है. ठीक है. बहुत ही aggressive. A very interesting behavior which is found only in sloth bear is piggybacking. This piggybacking. You see? Normally it happens that it goes when it gets up and goes in search of food. It usually travels for longer distance. हर जगह में नहीं मिलेगा. Its cubs will follow. पीछे पीछे आते रहता है. And after walking for some distance, it gets tired. And it is known for its claw-like hooks. It has a very thick fur. Okay, so the cubs will jump onto the mother's back. It will hold onto this. It will hang onto this, and the mother will carry it. It is a behavior which is found in very few species, carrying the offsprings on the back. This is called as piggybacking. So sloth bears are majorly present in India. It is also found in Nepal and Sri Lanka too. Okay, so let's quickly cover one more topic for today. Project Cheetah. चलो बढ़िया. चीता के बारे में तो आप लोग पढ़ाइए. Know about them. Cheetahs are the fastest land-based mammal. Fastest land-based mammal. Can run up to 120 km per hour. 120 140 तक भी recorded है. Its speciality is its acceleration. From a stationary position, it can reach 100 km per hour in 3 seconds. 3 seconds. Okay, so it can reach 100 km per hour. So that is its scale. Fine. It is one of the 7 big cat species of the world. What are the 7 big cat species? Quickly. Largest one is tiger, and then lion, cheetah, leopard, snow leopard, puma, jaguar. Panther is leopard only. Okay, puma and jaguar. Puma and jaguar is not there in India. 5 big cat species back in India with the back of cheetah. Cheetahs were also the oldest big cats in the world. In terms of evolution, the earliest to evolve. There are 2 species of cheetahs right now in the world. One is Asiatic cheetah, another is African cheetah. Okay, so Asiatic cheetah, original range is entire South Asia, West Asia to South Asia. African cheetah, both Northern Africa as well as Southern Africa, the original range. Right now, Asiatic cheetah is present only in Iran. खाली ईरान में बताया. African cheetah is present in many countries. The status of Asiatic cheetah is critically endangered. The status of African cheetah is vulnerable. ठीक है. Other than this, the difference: Asiatic cheetah is pale white in color. African cheetah is yellowish. Asiatic cheetah is slightly leaner. Okay, so image में थोड़ा सा ऐसे मोटा दिख रहा है, but this is slightly leaner than African cheetah. And Asiatic cheetah used to run faster than African cheetah. ठीक है. And most clearly visible characteristic you can see 2 dark stripes which is running through its face. It's called as Muller stripes. MALAR, Muller stripes. It helps in so seeing the prey even with the brightest sunlight, because it lives in a grassland. It's a grassland species, right? When it is hunting, because of the glare, so there's not much of shadow in the grassland. Because of the sunlight, it will create a glare. So to avoid that, it is a natural adaptation. Many other species also have this kind of so the dark line, black line. Okay, so that is the specialty of cheetah. It's not exclusive to cheetah. Okay? And cheetahs don't roar. Cheetahs purr. Okay, so meow meow. And other than that, cheetahs usually live alone. Sometimes we have observed male cheetahs forming groups for just for hunting. Okay, so just for hunting. Otherwise, they don't make a bonding family. जैसे male female साथ में रहना, ये सब तो नहीं. Okay, so in India, whatever the cheetahs we had, Asiatic cheetah went extinct in 1950 with the killing of last cheetah, and it was declared as extinct in 1952. Okay, so the main reason behind the decline of cheetahs in India was man-animal conflict. Okay, because as the grassland was degrading, okay, so the prey for cheetah has drastically declined. It started to enter into the human habitation and started to kill the domesticated animals. As a retaliation, human beings started to kill it. Okay, so because of which their number drastically declined. Okay, so and then they got extinct from India. We made an attempt to revive the cheetah population in 1970 during Indira Gandhi government. Okay, so that time we had a almost finalized agreement with Iran to transfer some of the cheetahs. Iran even now they have Asiatic cheetahs. That time it would have been better because we would have got more numbers. Okay, so but unfortunately there the events did not continue in a favorable manner. Iran revolution happened. In India, emergency was imposed on. All of this was so put backward. And in 2008 again it was revived during the second UPA government. They made attempts. Okay, so that time again we went back to Iran to ask इस बार तो दे दो at least. So बोला कि ठीक है दे देंगे, इस बार चीता के बदले आप लायन को देना पड़ेगा. So you have to give in exchange lion, because even they had at one point of time lions and it went extinct. हमने बोला lion तो गुजरात से ही बाहर नहीं आ रहा. So because so Gujarat totally protects the lion, it's considered to be the pride of Gujarat. Okay, so the original Kuno Palpur was finalized for lion rehabilitation. Okay, why did we choose Kuno for introduction of cheetah? It is one of the very few locations where all 4 big cats existed in the same range: tiger, lion, cheetah, leopard. It's a very much a favorable location. We thought we'll introduce lion, but lion did not materialize. Lion later in last year, this year only 2025 only we introduced in Barda. That was again in Gujarat. Okay, so we said okay, so the option nahi. So then again the second issue was we would not have got these many numbers. Very few are left. We would have got only few, and the chance of success would have been limited. Right? So therefore we went for African cheetah, even though there are certain issues because genetically they are not evolved here, and there is also the difference in the hemisphere. Because what cheetahs we brought is the southern hemisphere, and it will take time for them to adapt into the northern hemisphere because seasons are exactly opposite. First year we face this issue. Okay, so because there in the winter they develop secondary coat, a thicker coat gets developed. Okay, so as they brought here there was summer, and in the summer they developed a secondary coat, which became a little bit difficult for them to survive. Okay, that resulted in some of the deaths also. Gradually they adapted. Okay, so we went for Africa. In Africa majorly, so what are the countries with African cheetah population? Kenya, Tanzania, South Africa, Namibia, Botswana. The entire grassland stretch, Savannah grassland stretch. So first country to have an agreement with India was Namibia. Namibia gave 12 cheetahs. 8 cheetahs, 8 or 12 cheetahs. South Africa gave few more. Total 20 cheetahs were introduced in India, and the location which we chose was Kuno Palpur National Park. Okay, so I already told you why did we choose Kuno Palpur, because that is the original range where all 4 big cats existed. In fact, this entire region. Okay, so from here till here, this is the original range which we can call it as a grassland. India's grassland, dry grassland. It is not similar to Savannah, but it was rich in terms of wildlife at one point of time. Okay, so there were good number of lions, tigers तो अभी भी है, पूरा region में बहुत सारे tiger reserves है from Ranthambore. Okay, so till Sariska, there's a good number of tiger reserves. Okay, so and leopards are there. अभी तो leopards तो हर जगह में है. Cheetahs were also there. Cheetahs original जो most important range था यही था. So we finalized Kuno, we finalized Gandhi Sagar. Okay, so Nora Dehi and one more location here. Multiple locations were chosen. Finally, we went with Kuno. Gandhi Sagar. That time we ignored. Now we have again developed, and now we again reintroduced. The second site is Gandhi Sagar. ठीक है, we reintroduced here first Namibian and South African cheetahs were reintroduced in Kuno. This year we introduced some of them from Kuno only. We brought it here and released in Gandhi Sagar Wildlife Sanctuary. Recently, Botswana has made an agreement with India and has agreed to transfer nearly 8 cheetahs again. The same project cheetah. Okay, so the project cheetah is being implemented by whom? NTCA, the same National Tiger Conservation Authority, which is a statutory body under the Wildlife Protection Act, right? So this body, since it has a very well experience of implementing Project Tiger in India, so the same body is implementing the cheetah also. Okay, so initially we kept certain criteria to assess the success of this project, Project Cheetah. One of the criteria was, so cheetahs being born on Indian soil, which was fulfilled in the first year itself. More than 50% of survival, that was also fulfilled in the first year also. Okay, more than 50% survived. And another, in the second and third year, the criteria is those which are born in India should give birth to another second generation here. That has recently happened. The first cheetah to be born on Indian soil has given birth, and that cheetah which was born on Indian soil was Mukhi. Mukhi was the name of the cheetah which was born in Indian soil, which has given birth recently, so that will fulfill another success criteria also. Okay, so therefore the project is going well. Okay, so it is considered to be a success. Few criteria is there. Once we meet that, so it is completely successful. Why this project is important? It is not for tourism. It is not for so safari and all. It is mainly with the intention of reviving the grasslands of Indian ecosystem. Cheetah is the top predator here. Okay, so and bringing back of cheetah will bring back the grasslands. Okay, so the presence of a top predator ensures there is a balance in the food chain. All other organisms will come back and ensure their survival is ensured here. And at the world level also, this is the first transcontinental translocation of a wildlife. That means from one continent to another continent we have translocated. So for the wildlife conservation, this is going to be a major step. Okay, so the success of this cheetah project cheetah is very much important. It is because of this, because this will become so a lesson for many other such projects to come in the future. Okay, so therefore it is so necessary कि success हो जाए. उसके लिए बहुत सारा हमने काम किया है. For example, cheetah mitras were established. What is cheetah mitra? The local people who were volunteer to so train the local community and sensitize them. If you have seen last year कुछ videos आया था ऐसे कोई cheetah पुणे से बाहर आ गया. It has captured some cattle and the villagers were throwing stones on it. So because they are not aware of the importance of the cheetah, so फिर उनको sensitize किया कि आप ऐसे नहीं करना है, आपको compensation मिल जाएगा immediately. ऐसे कुछ हुआ है. And another occasion to where some of the villager is feeding drinking water to cheetah, making video. Okay, so the issue is not about the interaction. It's mainly about making cheetahs habituated to human interaction, which should not happen. If any wildlife become habituated to human interaction, it is very easy to poach it. Hunter will also come and give offer, so the food or water. It easily gets habituated to that. Okay, so we are taking all efforts. So hopefully this is going to be success. So let's see. So let's stop here. Okay, so one thing I wanted to ask: can we increase the speed? Yes or no? How many yes? Can you raise your hand? See, okay, maybe after 1 or 2 classes, maybe 1 classes के बाद में increase कर देंगे. Okay, so let's finish the biodiversity and move on to climate change tomorrow. Okay, thank you.